J.J. McCarthy throws, and it's intercepted. Picked up and being brought back for a touchdown by Bud Clark.
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Play fake. Launch. Wide open. Arian Smith left alone, and Georgia strikes quickly. 76 yards.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Bell one in motion. Design run for McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy, a Michigan touchdown.
Sikkim 365 Radio is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Huge 3rd down and 7 here. Michigan blitzes. Duggan dumps it off short. Quentin Johnston has the 1st down, and off he goes. They are not going to catch him. No flags. The magic continues for TCU.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
50 for the win and a spot in the national championship game. It's on the way. No good. He hooked it. And Georgia is going to survive.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
You know, sometimes you have reunions. It seems like we needed one of those after we have had a chance to decompress a little bit and get away. Everyone went in their different directions, but we're back. This is 365 Sports, and we appreciate you being here. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, I'm David Smoak. We have Jack, we have Jacob, we have Garrett, and we have you, and we appreciate you. There is so much to get to, from Baylor hiring coaches to, the number one story, TCU and Georgia playing for the national championship in what might have been the greatest single day of college football playoffs ever. Bowl games are going on right now, a couple of games. One of them is completely out of control. All of that, the transfer portal to get to, a ton to get to, and so let's do it. Happy New Year to everybody here on 365 Sports. Craig, Paul, games TCU and Michigan. TCU controlled that game pretty much from start to finish, and then Georgia in the comeback against Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, they were leading the game, but I don't like control. I don't know if that you could call the third quarter and the early part of the fourth quarter control for either one of them, because it was, I think, by definition, that got out of control, and it was nuts. I do think there's so many things I've read or seen over the last few days. Ari Wasserman wrote an article about that TCU's, the biggest threat to Stars Matter, and then I think about some of the things that Craig has said over the months about the 12-team playoff, where teams are like, or people who are against are like, well, they'll all be blowouts. Well, maybe they will be, because there have been a lot of them. But what if more of the games are like that? What if they're like that? What if you have good games? And I don't think that we're seeing like a full-on sea change, and that TCU is at the head of some sort of changing of college football. What I do think, though, is that there is more likelihood that teams that are not favored to do much in these games will somehow pop up and beat you, because you do not have the depth you used to have. You don't get to store, some 4-star players away until they're seniors and hope that they work out because of the transfer portal. So much like free agency has affected professional sports and the salary cap, I mean, I think that NIL and the transfer portal, now the NIL might affect it in an inverse fashion to the salary cap, but the transfer portal certainly has affected it enough to where teams can balance out really quickly, and we're seeing great games, and both those games were fantastic.
They were. Craig?
Yeah, I mean, those were two incredible contests. I don't think you could have drawn it up or asked for any better than what we got. And, I do think when it comes to the playoff, if you want to state that, teams like TCU and the new format will not be able to do what they did and then do it 2 more times after that, then I think that there's, a valid argument that can be made. However, they're not going to be playing a team like Michigan every single one of those games. They're going to be playing, USF or UC, or somebody like that in the first round, depending on where they're seated, and then they'd play a a South Carolina or an LSU or somebody like that in the second round, and then they'd get to probably your Michigan or Ohio State or someone along those lines. We really don't know just yet, but I do know that there's still the argument of, well, this is why the 4 team's perfect, is because, see, this is exactly how we just got the most perfect example of a 4-team playoff ever, and it's the first time we've got anything close to that. So I do think we finally saw the beauty of what the perfect 4-team bracket could look like, but I do think the TCU win absolutely shows you that there are teams outside of just the name brands and outside of the same 2 conferences over and over again that are capable, especially in this age of the transfer portal, as you mentioned, of revamping or reloading or rebuilding it rather quickly, and not only doing that, but doing so at a level where they're able to go and punch other teams in the mouth that a bunch of people, for whatever reason, don't even want to see have the opportunity. If it was up to some of the college football brethren out there, TCU would never have been playing for a title. They would have just been playing in, the Rose Bowl or the Sugar Bowl or whatever for a trophy, and that would have been all great and cute and everything, and that's what a lot of teams are doing. But I maintained all along, and I think most of us did, that they deserved a shot. No matter what happened against K-State in the Big 12 title game, they deserved a shot. They got their shot, and guess what happened? They went and beat the team that most people didn't give them credit to beat, including myself. I didn't think it was impossible. I just figured, no, Michigan will probably win. They'll probably, bully them up front and do all that. Well, I was wrong, and a lot of people were wrong in that regard, because TCU went and punched them in the mouth and did it over and over again. And we're just, mightily impressive in being able to pull out another close win. So was glad to see the Frogs get the opportunity and take advantage of it. And then on the other side of it, Ohio State, Georgia was incredible. And what a way to ring in the new year. And I know we'll talk about that more in depth. You couldn't have gone wrong with, either side really in that game. And I do wonder, just the question I had was, did that work out in the end better for TCU that Georgia won, or worse for TCU that Georgia won? I tend to think that they'd rather play Ohio State, but, regardless, they're getting a shot at a national title, and that's pretty special.
Well, let me put it this way. TCU's in the national championship game. All the debate about who should be there, they earned it, and every time Michigan tried to throw a haymaker to get back in it, and every time 21-16 or whatever it was, TCU answered. Temple's Quentin Johnston with an incredible play on a little drag route over the middle that he turned into a 70-something yard touchdown. TCU and Georgia, that's a week from today for the national championship. We'll have plenty of time to break that down and hear from various people, including today Tim Brando will join us at 5. He predicted that Ohio State would beat Georgia. He was just off. He predicted that TCU would beat Michigan. He was right. He also predicted Kansas State would beat Alabama. And 10-0 looked pretty good until the Crimson Tide said, okay, enough of this. And they were all of a sudden just gone. So, games today that are going on. USC 42, Tulane 30 with 12 minutes left in that game at the Cotton Bowl. LSU is pulverizing Purdue 49-7, 11 minutes left in that game. That game, I think, is in Orlando. Also today, how about the emotions of Mississippi State winning 19-10 and how they finished it? They kick a field goal at the very end to take the lead. And then in that game, Illinois tried to throw one of those crazy kickoff returns. Mississippi State intercepted the 15th lateral, ran it back for a touchdown to win 19-10. And the thing about that game, and I didn't think about this when the bowls were announced and then the Mike Leach passing, it's at Tampa Bay at Raymond James Stadium where there's a damn pirate ship in the end zone.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that's where Mike sat and watched the game today, where he belonged. I do think, though, he was probably a little distressed that they'd only scored 13 points until that play at the end. But yeah, even still, happy for Mississippi State. This had to be such a complicated week for them.
Yeah.
When you get up in the morning and go to your workout still dealing with the pain of the loss of Coach Leach, and then have to do this bowl week, which in your mind when you would happen, especially if you were a senior and this is going to be your last game, this is my last week with Coach Leach as a player. You have that in your mind, and you don't get to have that to go out and do that and win. Good for them. And it was a really good game. And they played Illinois' game. That was kind of surprising to me because now granted, Zach Arnett, the new coach, is a defensive guy. But they played Illinois' game where it was defense first, and then they stood toe to toe with them and won the game.
So here we are. And we take you to 6 o'clock. Of course, don't forget later on tonight, 10:30 on the CW channel, Sports Tonight with a condensed version of what we do thanks to Emery Winter. We'll hear from Tanner Mordecai. That's part of the stories of the transfer portal, quarterback movement. He's now Wisconsin's quarterback at 340. Bradley Del Pivito. He will join us today at 4. He's now the defensive coordinator at UTEP. He's been around a lot of places. He's been at A&M. He was a mentor of new Baylor defensive coordinator Matthew Pallage, which is one of the stories while we've been gone. And he'll join us today on Matthew Pallage today at 4 o'clock. Plus, David Hellman on the Cowboys in the NFL a week to go. Cowboys are on the verge of maybe taking Philadelphia's number 1 seed. They need one thing to happen, and then they need to take care of business. Well, they need 2 things to happen. And then Paul back, of course, with his top 25. It's great to be here. The chat room's going crazy. Again, thank you. Let's see. Here's Kevin Gall. He's Baylor. He's one of the Baylor's director of athletics in that underneath the Mac Rhodes. In 18 months since the Big 12 Conference was disrupted, achievements by remaining and incoming members include 2 classic Big 12 championship games, no doubt, 3 New Year's 6 bowl victories. New Year's 6 bowl victories. 2 college football playoff appearances, a college football playoff W, and a title game spot, and what will be 3 top 5 finishes. That's from Kevin Gall. He sent that to me. He also put that up on Twitter. And if you think about it, all of that's good. TCU in the championship game, I'm sure Baylor fans, some of you are going, oh, my God. But is it good for the Big 12 Conference that TCU is where they are? And the answer is absolutely correct. It is.
I think it's good that you're saying good things about the Big 12 Conference and not mentioning the teams that are leaving 2 years in a row at the end of the season. Taking the 30,000-foot view of it, yeah, it's great. Now, if you're in an individual fan base, you kind of have to take the good with the bad. I mean, if your biggest rivals in the national championship game, the only thing that mildly salves the burn is it's good for the conference overall in an ever-changing world of college athletics. But, still, you're probably rooting for Georgia to win that game because you don't want, the people 90 miles away to feel 1 ounce of joy. But I think that, overall it's been great. And again, not having Texas and Oklahoma as a part of that is really, really good news. I mean, and I'm not knocking on Texas and Oklahoma. It's just for the Big 12, they needed to separate their identity from them, and to do it before they left the league is perfect.
They also needed a win because they were 1-6 in bowl games until TCU took care of their business against Michigan. I'm not a big bowl game record, but boy, other than Texas Tech, the Big 12 needed somebody to show up.
And outside of the playoff, I mean, that's kind of saved the bowl watching for me, quite frankly. I don't know what it is about just this year in general. I love bowl games and love watching them, but, watching this year, especially when we started getting to, like, the second week of it, I was like, is this really all there is to it? Like, I'm waiting for the big games with some stuff riding on the line, and so we ultimately got to that point. But yeah, I mean, they were just kind of games, and they were just sort of happening, and that's not because the Big 12 was not doing well. That doesn't make one bit of difference to me, really, in most of these contests. But I think that they needed a shot of some feel good and some positive news because they were struggling to find wins, and TCU and Texas Tech delivered that, and TCU in a huge fashion by being able to win a playoff game. I mean, look, Texas hasn't been to the playoff before. TCU now has. Oklahoma's been. They've never won one. TCU has. So, for all the talk about what they do in terms of carrying the conference, financially or TV ratings or what have you, there's still going to be some of that no matter what TCU does or doesn't do next week. But they sure shot some holes through, some of the arguments or some of the claims by, fans of those 2 departing schools. And look, they'll go off and they'll be happy. But yeah, I think if you're a Big 12 fan just in general, no, if you're a Baylor fan, do you want to see TCU win a national title in football? No, of course you don't. TCU wouldn't root for that for Baylor, even if the conference was on the line as well, and I wouldn't expect them to. If you're some of these other schools, maybe it doesn't hit as hard. Like if you're Iowa State, does it really matter that TCU wins a national title? Does that really affect you? Not really. I mean, it doesn't. It's not going to hurt your recruiting or anything like that. So I think it depends on what school you're talking about. If you're Tech, you don't want TCU winning a title because that cuts into probably some of the guys you'd love to recruit and gives them a huge advantage over you and what you're trying to do. But having said that, I think if they do win it, yeah, it'll be tough for a couple of schools that now have to recruit against that, but ultimately it'll be for the benefit of everyone. And, my question would just be, how hot does TCU get and how hot do they stay? And, what does that do for, potential movement in the future? Like, do they get so hot being in that DFW? I brought this up before we went to break. I brought up the fact that, realignment is quieted down, but it's not totally over. Now, Kevin Warren's in the news about, potentially an NFL job, which would be very interesting and might shake up the future plans. But, when everybody's throwing out their charts and all of that about who could jump from here to here, who could be the next, I brought up TCU a lot. I mean, they're in Dallas-Fort Worth, and I understand the size isn't what you think of with Ohio State, and the TV ratings aren't necessarily week in and week out of what you think of when you think of Michigan or even Texas for that matter. But, I mean, you talk about a hot brand in a hot town and, doing a lot that nobody ever expected. I mean, that's TCU right now. So they're taking full advantage, and rightfully so. And you just hope when all is said and done, the Big 12 can maximize that as best they can. And TCU is one of those teams that's not only leading the charge right now, but is leading the charge in the future for you as well.
So they will play Georgia a week from tonight to win the national championship or not. We'll see what happens in that game. And those two games on Saturday were like two heavyweights just throwing haymakers. Michigan had to get off the canvas quite a bit. And then they did, and then TCU would land a big punch. And then, of course, Ohio State had the big lead or in control of the game for the most part against Georgia, up, 14 a couple of times, 10 a couple of times. And then here comes Georgia and what they did. Now, USC, again, is leading Tulane. Hell of a game. Tulane's played really, really well. Spears has had 150-plus yards rushing. Tajay Spears in 3 touchdowns. Caleb Williams is, I believe, well over now 400 yards passing and has 3 or 4 touchdowns in that specific game. Couple of other college football notes to get to. Grayson McCall of Coastal Carolina, very talented quarterback. He made the decision to withdraw his name from the transfer portal. This came yesterday evening. Tim Beck's the new head coach. Grayson McCall is now, it was in Max Olson, the number 2 best available ranked player, and now he's going back to UCF. That's Hartman's picture.
Well, yeah, because that's the article.
Back to Coastal Carolina.
But Grayson McCall is going to be back at Coastal Carolina, and Tim Beck gets a huge recruiting bonus, not bonus cash-wise, but a huge deal for him at Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, I thought, of the quarterbacks available, and I don't really consider Sam Hartman available because I think that's Notre Dame or bust. Like, he's going to Notre Dame. So taking him out of that, since it seems like that is, and like Tanner Mordecai was in the portal for like 3 hours, and then he went to Wisconsin. So like
he might have been in the portal for 3 hours, but I don't think it was like available for 3 hours.
Yeah, exactly. So like he was there for however long he was. So of the guys available, including Spencer Sanders and Brandon Armstrong, to me Grayson McCall was the best one. I even the top 5 I did on Friday when I was about 5 quarterbacks that Baylor should look at. Grayson McCall was number 1. I think that was something they could brought in here and would have done very well here, but some kind of strange academic issue popped up, which is why he had to cancel his visits to Auburn and Florida. Florida ultimately settled on Graham Mertz as their transfer quarterback for this year and not Grayson McCall. So clearly they didn't think it was ever going to get resolved and get back in it. So he's back at Coastal Carolina, and good for them. I mean, and lucky for the teams in the Power 5 that won't have to face him next year, because I do think he's a really good player and could help a team a lot.
Yeah, he was a really intriguing name that was out there in the portal. But as Paul mentioned, there were some obvious things to take care of, and it's ultimately great news for Coastal Carolina to get him back. Great news for Tim Beck. Kind of surprised, but it makes sense in the end. And not every guy who goes in is necessarily going to leave with a new address. I mean, some guys do it just to sort of gauge the market, and then for this reason or that reason, they decide that ultimately their best bet is to come back. So that's a massive unexpected win, I think, for Coastal Carolina, and a tough break for teams out there who are hoping to have his services next year to boost them up. But more bad news in terms of that is just the fact that's another quarterback that's gone out of the portal. So for those out there who are still scrambling to try and find a guy, I mean, what are you looking at this point? There's few and far between now. I mean, the quarterback race was on very quickly, and you saw dominoes starting to fall very quickly, especially those big names we were really looking out for. Once those guys, kind of got out of the way there in the first week or so, there's another good batch of names. But I mean, now Luke Altmaier's gone, Grayson McCall's gone. I mean, you're sort of scraping the bottom of the barrel now, and there will be some more quarterbacks that jump in there post spring. That's to be determined on just how voluminous that really is, but there will certainly be some names. It just won't be as star-studded as it was over these last few weeks, and now it's not nearly as star-studded. So it makes me wonder about a team like Baylor. It really does. I mean, I don't know what their plan is at quarterback, man. I have no clue at this point what they're going to do at that position, and I thought maybe they'd get involved here and go grab a guy like a Luke Altmaier, for example. I mean, but they're staying pat, and I don't know how active they got, but either way, they'll definitely be one of those teams that you watch, I think, post-spring to see if maybe they change their tune and they try to go get whoever might be available.
Is Brennan Armstrong the only name left?
Spencer Sanders.
Spencer Sanders, Oklahoma State. Okay.
So they I thought that their plan should be someone who can push Blake Shapen for the job, and then someone who maybe would be able to push Blake Shapen for the job, depending how good or how much he fits, but is the guy I selected with Brady Allen from Purdue. He's a 4-star recruit. Obviously, people think of him kind of like what Wisconsin's doing with Nick Evers and Tanner Mordecai, bringing a guy who's a freshman who has pretty much his full level of eligibility, and he's kind of your long-term project that salves the burn of not getting a quarterback in this recruiting cycle, and then someone who can, be a veteran and push Blake Shapen, if not, go overhead and start him if you're Brent Armstrong, Spencer Sanders, or Grayson McCall. But now, I mean, like outside of Armstrong and Sanders, I think Baylor needs to get somebody like Alan Bowman, like somebody who's played.
Malik Hornsby,
that's another project guy. Like get somebody who's played, who that even if they don't win the starting job, the season's not cooked if Blake Shapen misses 2 games. So yeah, they've got to come up with something.
Hornsby can run. I don't know much about how well he can throw it. I know he was an elite player in high school, but I don't know what he's actually done because Jefferson's been the guy at Arkansas.
Yeah, he's not a polished guy in that regard. So that would be, something that they would have to work around or work with. But that's also why you'd be able to possibly get him. It's because he's not a finished product. If he was able to throw as well as he can run, then, he'd be already on a team, probably already scooped up. So, yeah, that's just another name that would potentially make sense, and maybe they have a different plan in mind, but you bring up another quarterback domino falling, and you look around the room and there's probably 3 name value guys or name guys, just if you follow recruiting or have followed the last couple years, that you go like okay, but outside of that, everybody's pretty much signed up elsewhere at this point. So it's slim pickings, and again, we'll see some more names there post spring, but that's a ways away now at this point. And speaking about Baylor specifically, or some of these other schools that might have been in the race for guys, it's possible, yes, that you can still go add 1 or 2 players down the line, but the problem isn't necessarily who you've got for next year right at this very moment. It's who do you even have for spring ball if you're Baylor?
Yeah.
You have just Blake Shapen. That's it. I mean, that's your spring football roster, not counting non-scholarship guys, and that's where my concern comes in, is you don't even have a backup spring quarterback right now at the moment. So that's got to be figured out somehow or another.
Well, another guy I'd kind of put down the list for Baylor was Austin Aune from North Texas. He's just now withdrawn from the portal.
Yeah.
So he is kind of off the board there. But
I thought he was turning pro.
He is turning
pro.
So his whole little decision has kind of gone various ways, and it was like he withdrew from the portal, but now he's declared for the draft, and he had declared for the portal earlier, and then I believe now at this point he's going to the draft, and that's going to be the end of Austin Aune in college at age 28 or whatever he is now at this point.
Well, I mean, he's got 6 grandkids, so he's got to take care of that.
LSU 56, Purdue 7, 6 minutes left in that one. USC 42-30, 5 minutes left in the Cotton Bowl.
Well, one name I did not mention, and I should now because he's now shot up the charts, is Zeke Daniels, a guy that Baylor saw a lot of last week in the Armed Forces Bowl. Now, I don't know what his, projections are as a passer. I know that the few passes he hit on the other night were really good. But given what they did with Gary Bohannon and won the conference with him as their main starting quarterback, I mean, I think Zeke Daniels would step in well and run that
I
offense. I know that's not the one, but yeah.
I was impressed with him. Now, how you would mold that? Maybe he can obviously run. Shapen was not a threat to run, and when he did, he didn't. He just didn't get much done with that, which was, I think, disappointing. Craig, you were going to mention Daniels. I thought he was the best player in the whole game.
He was the best quarterback, without a doubt, on the field, without question. And, yeah, I mean, that seems like about a month ago at this point. But, no, I mean, credit to Air Force. That was the first time I'm talking about it. That was a great win for them. It was a miserable bowl game. I mean, just in terms of the weather and, how that was, playing into just the whole environment and just the feel of the game. That was super unfortunate. But, yeah, I mean, credit to the Falcons. They played a great game, and Zeke Daniels was a big part of their success. I mean, I don't know how much I trust him to go out there and throw it 20-plus times a game. Like, that's the thing is he hit, a handful of passes, and that was like a career night for him. He would have to do a lot more than that in the Big 12. And so, yeah, I mean, as far as a guy in the mix – I mean, yeah, you look at him because I think you're looking at everybody right now if you're Baylor or other schools in a similar position. But, yeah, I'm not going to let that one night and throwing in the cold against that Bears defense is proof positive that he could go and do that week in and week out in the Big 12. But, hey, I'm curious to see where he does land because obviously he got word or felt, after that game like – he had some opportunities out there, so we'll see what those are. But, yeah, he had a great game.
All right, a couple more things to get to. We do need a break. We'll have Tanner Mordecai. I recorded an interview with Tanner, the former Midway High School star, Oklahoma, SMU, and now headed to Wisconsin. Alabama's Bryce Young, Will Anderson Jr., Jahmyr Gibbs, all turning pro. They all played in the Sugar Bowl and just routed Kansas State after down 10-0. Good for all of them for playing. Not everybody does in this day and age, and everyone has their own decision to make of what they want to do. But Alabama probably felt a little sour, not because so much they were left out. They also could have done things, but these guys all play. They all made the commitment, and Alabama beat the hell out of Kansas State.
How would you feel if, in a normal year for Alabama, that playing in this game, which they haven't had to do since opt-outs became a thing, but playing in a bowl game like this, if you were the fifth or sixth guy who would have opted out, you're still going to be a first-round pick, but you're 28th or 29th, and then the guys who are going to be potentially picks 1 and 2 are like, no, we're playing.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably can't say anything.
And I think it's because they probably felt like the year overall, for most teams, would be fantastic, but they just felt like maybe there was one more thing they needed to accomplish to maybe validate who they are, although not in the college football playoffs.
Yeah, I saw, I'm sure we all did if we were on social media, the random Alabama fan arguing why they should still be in the playoff or why they should, have a claim at a title or whatever. And I know some of it's just trolling, but no, I mean, they lost the games they lost and they cost themselves a chance at a title. And in future years, they would be in that playoff and those guys would certainly be playing. And maybe that's when they would flip that gear and they'd beat K-State in the first round and then go beat another team and then go find themselves in a national title game. I mean, that's what the new path is going to have to be here pretty soon. And they'll be geared up as well as anyone for that. But I do think there was a bit of a chip on their shoulder in this case. I think that they did want to be there, even if initially they didn't want to be there. But, yeah, I mean, they went out with something to prove, and they proved it against K-State that the Wildcats, as good of a year as they had, Big 12 champs and whatnot, that they're still a long way from that upper tier that Alabama has occupied almost solely for quite a while. But now, obviously, with Georgia elbow to elbow with them and maybe one or two other teams that you want to throw into that mix. But pretty exclusive company, and the Tide did make a statement, and those guys leaving is absolutely no surprise. Just more of a surprise that a guy like Bryce Young's not leaving with far more hardware than what you probably expected when his career first started. But still, a great all-time Tide player, just not as decorated as a lot of the other guys here in the last decade or so.
Here's the uniform and the helmet, Mississippi State, by the way, wore today in the 19-10 win. The Pirate. Honoring Mike Leach, of course, the story that was the biggest story in all. TCU story is a huge story, but in the end, the loss of Mike Leach, they wore those helmets earlier today in the win against Illinois. Super chat, Eric, a $5 super chat. We appreciate those. It always is nice that you do that. We appreciate it on the chat room of 365 Sports. Wondering if much was said after the Gundy press conference after the loss when he threatened to ban a reporter. Bad luck if Polk's admin lets it slide. I was here flying solo with Garrett on 12/23. We played the audio video. We discussed it. I don't think anything like any kind of public reprimand or anything like that. I'm sure Gundy probably wishes in the end he didn't do that. It reminded me of I'm 40. I didn't like what he said. I thought the reporter handled it incredibly well, and it was a fair question. It was absolutely on whether or not there's going to be coaching changes, staff changes. I thought he handled it very well. The part I hated about it, I'm going to cut you out. And it's not a threat. As far as physically, he was talking about, was he going to cut him off or cut him out? Like he's not going to ever answer this guy's questions ever again.
Yeah, I think that the one thing that people need to know that were on the solo, did he have to ask it right after they lost? Well, look, there might be a time that you get to ask him again about staff changes between then and the time he'd make them. But the thing is that most of the time, we don't know when we're going to get the coach after the bowl game.
Have we talked to Dave Aranda since the bowl game?
No, and we won't until spring football.
Did we talk to Dave Aranda really since they lost to Texas until the bowl game?
No, so you don't know, you don't know. Even at, a 35-year media member in Stillwater, Oklahoma, has no idea, once that bowl game's over, when Mike Gundy's going to decide to talk to them again. There's another signing day coming up in February. He could very well just send out a press release because it might just be 2 or 3 guys, and he doesn't need to do a whole press conference about it. You'd be like, here, they're the 3 guys we signed. I'll see you on March 10th.
You could also do that off to the side if, in fact, that's available. I had a media relations guy tell me that one time when Coach Browse was here, and that's possible too. But the question was legitimate. Now, how Gundy answered it, that's him. And I don't know what's happened since that time or what will happen down the road.
Yeah, but did you see the way he had his hand on his chest? Oh, wait, that was a different thing with the Big 12 coach this past week. Never mind. That was
that was the Steve Sarkisian
that was something different.
Tunnel
My bad.
walk.
That was another outburst. No, I mean, the Gundy thing was just that was Mike Gundy. I mean, in so many words, I mean, that's not foreign for him to, act out. And I do think he really made that much bigger than it really was. He really overblew the situation. And, I feel like that's just a very strenuous situation, I guess, going on in Stillwater. It just feels like it's time for him to go or for them to look differently. I mean, it just feels that way to me, and maybe it feels differently for people up there. But, I mean, the man's made every attempt to try and leave there, in terms of jobs that have come up over the last few years, and then had to kind of damage control that when words got out. I mean, he's definitely made plays to try to go elsewhere. They're kind of just spinning their tires, it feels like. I know they just played for a Big 12 title last year, and both them and Baylor took big steps down, but I don't know, man. Like, it just feels like something's off up there right now, and I'm not exactly sure what it is. I don't think he should be fired for that outburst, but I do think he needs a little talking to, and he probably won't listen at this point. He's kind of established up there, and how he is kind of just how he is, and that's accepted for right or wrong, but this isn't his first rodeo with a kind of embarrassing post game. It probably won't be his last as long as he's coaching. He's want to do this every once in a while. But I definitely just think it was frustrations boiling over, and he took it out on somebody who couldn't really, defend themselves as well as others might be able to. So I didn't appreciate that. I thought it was kind of silly, and I don't, for 1 second, if I was in that media room, would I back down or be scared of Mike Gundy barking at me like that? And if anything, he's lucky that maybe some people are as sheepish or as professional as they are, because I'm going to tell you right now, that guy gets away with barking a lot at people that I think if he was just another dude in the streets, he would not get away with. But that's his MO. That's how he acts. That's fine. But yeah, I think it was just an embarrassing look for Oklahoma State when all was said and done.
And here's the thing that didn't make any sense to me, and then I want to talk about Boise State for a second. But it's that Gundy had appeared in the last 2 or 3 years to really kind of be at peace with everything. Remember, Robert Allen's talked about the president, the AD, and of course, yes, last year's team was really, really good, and they started off well, but it seemed like he kind of was at peace, and now you've got some fire underneath of you, and so he did react the way he did, and Oklahoma State or whoever can go from there, just like Texas can with Sarkisian and the tunnel flare-up. All right, this was the don't react yet. This was a tweet after Oklahoma lost in their bowl game, and I thought, oh my God, they're going to go 6-7. Last time they had a losing season was before they won that national title. I think the year before they might have been 6-6. So 1999, first consecutive winning seasons. They had a 23 consecutive winning seasons dating back to Stoops' first year. But they said Wisconsin's the new FBS leader. Not so fast, as Lee Corso would say. There was a response. Boise State has 25 straight winning seasons that leads the FBS, including this year. And when they were in that stretch of winning 25 straight, they were an FBS school. So there's a school that got overlooked at a stat that did kind of come to shocking terms that Oklahoma had their first losing season in 23 years.
Yeah, by the way, I had to watch that on an airplane and keep my cool in the fourth quarter, which was not an easy thing to do. But I'm proud of myself that I did.
Yeah, I'm proud of Oklahoma for showing a lot more fight than I thought they would. I mean, that was a game where, quite frankly, they weren't supposed to be in it. They weren't record-wise good enough to be in that game. Florida State should have been playing one of the other schools like Texas Tech out of the Big 12. But because the bowl committee did what they did and they wanted the bigger fan base, they got Oklahoma and they got their money's worth because that turned into a great game. So, yeah, hats off to Florida State. That was much closer than I anticipated it being. That's obviously a big win for Mike Norvell. But that's baseline for Brent Venables moving forward. I mean, if he's sitting there hanging around in bowls like that, he's not going to be long for that job. And that is certainly not what they are going to be expected to be moving forward. So I think they got, blessed with a better bowl opportunity, and maybe that helped them to play one of their better games of the year, was having, a few weeks to prepare for, a really formidable opponent. But, yeah, FSU's got the trajectory going up, and Oklahoma, I think it remains to be seen, recruiting and off-season stuff. They'll celebrate that and probably get some really good positive momentum going in the next season, and that's something they can build off of.
One more update from today's games. Tulane just recorded a safety. USC was at the 1-yard line. They got knocked down or stuffed in the end zone. 4 minutes to go in the game, 45-39 USC. And Tulane's about to field a punt on the safety kickoff following the safety. And that is a great game to watch right now. We, of course, are watching us, but also we are catching that game off to the side. 45-39, 3:20 left, and Tulane will now get the ensuing kickoff or punt following the safety. Let's take a break right here. We'll update you on that game whenever we possibly can. I think we got to most everything. There's still much to get to, including one of our viewers, Steve Shook, sent it, and we're not going to do it now, sent me an email about the attrition of the college football playoffs as a topic. And we'll get to that a little bit later on. Also, a few pictures from the Fiesta Bowl win by TCU with family that's out of Waco. But Tanner Mordecai made the decision from Oklahoma to SMU, from SMU now to Wisconsin, and he is next on 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, got a lot of great deals going on now over at Richard Carr. And they are the people that you can count on, not only for great service of your vehicle, but for great service throughout the life of your vehicle, and also just great deals. It just depends on what you're looking for. Are you looking for great customer service? Well, you're going to get that no matter what. But if you're looking for repairs, they can do that for you. If you're looking for brand new vehicles, they have those lined up for you. And if you're looking for pre-owned vehicles, they have those available as well. Right now, they've got new trucks and SUVs that are gifts that can't be beat. Gift giving's obviously pretty much over now with Christmas having come and gone, but still got a lot of things coming up like New Year's and Valentine's Day and so on and so forth. So make it a memorable holidays if you haven't already with a car or truck from Richard Carr. Trucks and SUVs in stock, dozens of Sierras, dozens of SUVs, the biggest inventory they've had in 2 years right now. Get 3.9% interest for well-qualified buyers on GMC Sierras and GMC Terrain trucks in stock, and 3.99% financing on Buick Encores, Buick Envisions, and Buick Enclaves in stock. As I mentioned before, if you're not looking to buy new, they've got dozens of quality pre-owns, cars and trucks in stock under $20,000, affordable, thoroughly inspected, ready to finance, quality vehicles ready to reliably take you on the road this holiday season for 23 years in Central Texas. No matter what you're looking for, they've got great customer service, having built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. So go check them out. Richard Carr, run by proud Central Texans. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6, the Imperial exit.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel & Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel & Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel & Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
We're now joined by Wisconsin quarterback Tanner Mordecai, former Midway All-State blue chip quarterback, and this is 365 Sports. So the journey continues, except now it's in Madison, Wisconsin. How quickly did people contact you when you entered your name in the portal?
So when my name went in, there's a notification thing that goes off, and it was probably a couple minutes. Whenever the notification went off, I had a bunch of numbers ringing my phone. So it was pretty crazy. People from all over.
Was it different than the last time you entered a portal with Oklahoma to SMU?
I think maybe the magnitude of the teams were a little bit different. Back when I entered it, a couple years ago, I think I wasn't a proven, college quarterback. And now that I've played 2 years and put up some productive numbers, that whenever I entered the portal, I guess I was more appealing.
You had mentioned entering the draft at SMU, and I'm not sure if you ever actually officially said that or not, and I know there's a difference between saying it and doing it. Did you feel like there was maybe a need for you to go play for a Power 5 school to prove yourself at a different level?
Maybe, but I had nothing but great times at SMU. Very thankful for what happened there. The relationships, the friendships, everything that went on at that university was awesome. I think just being able to go play at a place like Wisconsin will help me, better my draft stock this next coming year. I think it's just an overall good opportunity that I couldn't pass up. So I think that's why I chose to, use my last year of eligibility up there.
Luke Fickell, Phil Longo, Wisconsin, obviously a team that has competed for Big Ten Western Division championships and also the Big Ten title. What is the process? Once you enter, people call you, you talk to them, eventually you make a decision. It didn't take very long. Did you speak with Coach Fickell, and what did he say if you did?
Yeah, I talked to Coach Fickell, I talked to Coach Longo. They're really excited about me. They wanted a guy that could come in, lead the guys, lead the culture, and, be productive this fall, win a lot of games and go compete for championships. Coach Longo is a big reason. He, I think, is one of the top offensive minds in college football right now. We had a relationship back in high school, and he was at Ole Miss when he was under Hugh Freeze out there. So we've known each other for a little while. And, it kind of just all fell in place.
He also just came off a year with this dramatic explosion of everyone knew about May, Drake May at North Carolina. Did that also just validate everything about what he does with quarterbacks?
Yeah, that and him with Sam Howell the years before that. Yeah, of course.
So what was more important, Luke Fickell, Phil Longo, offense, Wisconsin, Big Ten, or the hunting and fishing you can do in Wisconsin?
I think it's all just a perfect marriage. All of it came together at the right time. I think there's a lot of pieces that kind of just fell into place, and I'm just so fired up for this opportunity to go up there. I know their football culture as a school and as a city and as a state, it's just unreal, and I can't wait to make them proud.
Well, for those who don't know, and anyone that knows you, you love to hunt and fish, no question. Have you ever hunted or fished that far up north?
No, sir. I haven't been up that far up north, and I'm so excited to be up there. As far as hunting and fishing, I know it's a little bit different, but I've heard it's pretty incredible up there as well.
Desmond Ridder had a great run at Cincinnati under Luke Fickell. Did that enter, or did that even come into mind? He, in fact, helped the Falcons come back and win a game yesterday.
I think that kind of validates Coach Fickell. Even though he has coached defense in the past, that he's, open to different offenses and, lets the offensive guys, do their thing. And I think that definitely helps for sure, especially when, Ridder had such a successful career at Cincinnati.
Tanner Mordecai, Wisconsin quarterback with us, Midway star quarterback with us on 365 Sports. So you had Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma, Sonny Dykes at SMU, then Coach Lashley, and now Luke Fickell and Phil Longo. That's a pretty good that's a great mentorship, so to speak. It's almost like serving under some elite names. How much does that, when you reflect back on your career, how much has that been great for you?
It's allowed me to learn from so many different perspectives, see how things are done and how you can be successful in different ways. I think there's a lot of different avenues to success. And, with me being able to play under so many different people that allows me just to see a different view of things and how things are done.
You don't seem to be somebody that really, I'm not saying you don't like the attention. You have had it for a long time since you were at Midway, and then, of course, what you've done in college. What was the attention like when you made the decision with Wisconsin?
I mean, those guys, Wisconsin lives and breathes football. I mean, they love their football up there. So, I think their atmosphere for Wisconsin football is as good as anywhere in the country. So, yeah, I can't wait to get up there and actually feel it.
What have you learned, Tanner, about yourself during this journey of where you've been, where you have played, and now where you're about to play?
I think, being patient, resilient. I think I've made some relationships that'll last a lifetime. I think, the best friends for the rest of my life, I've met them already, and I think that's what I'm really thankful for is the people that I've come across. And I think I've just learned to shake as many hands as I can, network as well as I can, and get to know people. I think that's the biggest thing I've learned so far.
How much does NIL come into play when it is in this day and age of college football?
I mean, it's a realization of college football now. Whether you like it or don't like it, that's how the game's going to be played until says otherwise. Until NCAA says otherwise. It's a part of the game. It's as real as ever. So it's something you have to take in consideration as a coach and a player for as long as it exists.
Your father, Micah, an incredibly important and obviously a successful businessman. Your parents have been fantastic. The decision to play at Wisconsin, there is NIL available. You also now play at a Big Ten school, and they are, of course, a major part of college football. When you talk about where you were, when you discuss where you were at Midway High School to now where you are, and yes, you were at Oklahoma and SMU, is it kind of a whirlwind in a way?
Yeah, I didn't think I would, when I came to OU, I never thought I would go to SMU and then end up at Wisconsin. I never could have told you that was going to happen. But I guess it's a calm whirlwind. It's a fun whirlwind. I had awesome 3 years at OU. Like I said, lots of relationships I made that carried for the rest of my life. Then my 2 years at SMU was awesome. The people there, Dallas is awesome. The SMU alumni, they've all been awesome. It's really great to me. The coaches that I've met, and now, I can't wait to be up at Wisconsin. I know it'll be different than the other two, which is good. Just like SMU is different than OU, I know Wisconsin will be different than both of them. So, yeah, I guess it's a little bit of a whirlwind, but it's a fun one. It's a calmer whirlwind than you would think. I'm fired up.
Let me ask you this, and I hope you understand why I'm asking you. You knew Chandler Morris, obviously, from where he was. And then, of course, He was supposed to be the starter this year at TCU, had the great game against Baylor last year. He gets hurt. Duggan takes over, and we've seen this storybook season for TCU and your former head coach in Sonny Dykes. Did Chandler reach out to you about Sonny, or did Max Duggan ever talk to you much about Sonny Dykes? And are you surprised where TCU is right now?
I didn't know Max, really. I really don't. I don't know a whole lot. But me and Chandler were together at OU, so so yeah, he reached out just asking about Garrett Riley, OC over there, and stuff like that. Coach Kaz. So yeah, Coach Dykes, really good coach. Coach Garrett Riley has done a great job offensively, obviously. So I'm happy to see their success. And Coach Kaz, the strength coach, that was actually with Art Browse a while ago.
Right.
He was with us at SMU and now at TCU. I think he runs a phenomenal strength program and from a leadership standpoint as well. So yeah, I'm not too surprised, but it's been great for them, no doubt.
I have to ask this question. Before you entered the portal, were there people reaching out to you that shouldn't have been?
Nope. No, sir.
You hear coaches have been saying that there's a lot of that going on, and maybe it is ongoing elsewhere, but did that allow you to just peacefully make your decision?
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Tanner, thank you very much. Congratulations. When do you leave for Madison?
I'm going up there for a couple days here pretty soon. Then I go up there for good near the end of the month.
Start another semester. Tanner Mordecai, Wisconsin quarterback, former Midway star on 365 Sports. Thank you to Tanner Mordecai. Good luck to him with Wisconsin. Coming up in the next hour, Bradley Dale Pivotal, longtime football coach and someone who's had a hell of an impact on Baylor defensive coordinator Matthew Pallage's career. Tulane 46-45. USC's flicking the ball around on the kickoff return, trying to make something happen. And who knows what's going to happen. I'm going to go ahead and let this thing play itself out. This is fun. As Tulane scored with just 9 seconds to go, ball game, they have beaten USC in the Cotton Bowl. What an incredible win for the Green Wave and Willie Fritz. 46-45, a huge win for an underdog. When we come back, we'll hear from Bradley Dale Pivotal on Matthew Pallage and more. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco. Ram trucks, Jeep vehicles, and of course Chrysler and more. Ted Teague, the general manager, the sponsor of our annual Academic All-Stars team. They have had the big finish event that just wrapped up, and they'll have something else now that we've started the year. And as soon as I get all of that information, I will pass it on to you. But they always have something with Ram and Jeep, and they have an incredible lot filled with cars and vehicles for you and a staff waiting there for you to drop by and see how you want to kick off or drive off this starting of 2023. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Last week, Dave Aranda and Baylor made the announcement that Matthew Pallage, who was there in that 12-2 season, the 2-7 season, safeties and special teams coach, went to Oregon, co-defensive coordinator, was going to be Baylor's new defensive coordinator. I asked Coach Pallage to give me a name or two or four of the mentors in his career as a coach, and one of them, Bradley Dale Pivotal, who's now the defensive coordinator at UTEP, and, of course, he was a mentor of Matthew Pallage at Kentucky and also Northwestern Louisiana. He joins us on 365 Sports with Paul, David, and Craig. Coach, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. Happy New Year. Did you happen to just watch Tulane and USC? I just got to ask you that first.
You know what? I was on the treadmill watching that game, and I was just glad y'all didn't have me on at 3:45.
Well, honestly, we were too. We were too. Yeah.
Well, what an incredible game. I mean, has there been some incredible bowl games or what?
Yeah, there have been. Incredible semifinal games and the bowl games. So you knew Matthew Pallage a few years back when he was younger. He's a 35-year-old, going to be the defensive coordinator with Dave Aranda at Baylor. When I mentioned Matthew Pallage to you, what was your initial reaction? What's your reaction when you hear his name?
Well, Matthew, and we call him Pow. When he came to work for us at Northwestern State, he had been a one-year coach, and I knew right then he was headed to the top. I mean, he had everything it took to be a great football coach, on and off the field, and I knew he was headed for greatness. And then at the end of that season, I ended up going to Kentucky with Mark Stoops to coach the safeties and coordinate the special teams. And he said I could bring one guy with me and as an analyst. And, of course, it was a no-brainer. I asked Matt Pallage to go with me, and he did. And, he's a great football coach. I got a call one time from a coach. It was Matt Viator from ULM. He calls me and says, what a great job you did training me. I said, wait a minute, Matt, you got that wrong. I said, he trained me. But that's how much I think of him. He, I knew when he was young, he was headed for greatness. And no way am I surprised at where he's at 35. He's exactly where I thought he would be. He's a great football mind. He's a man of great character. He's a great recruiter. He understands, the ins and outs of the game. He's really, really special, and he'll do a great job at Baylor, and he'll move on after that. I mean, he is headed.
Oh, we lost him. We'll try to get reconnected with Coach Pivotal in a moment. How about the note, Craig, that when he took the job to go to Kentucky, he was told he could take one guy with him, bring one guy with him, and Coach Pallage was his answer. He's back with us, Coach Pivotal now with us on 365 Sports. I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish what you were saying, Coach.
No, I knew from a young age with him, when I was with him for 2 years, I knew Matt Powers was headed for greatness, and nothing he has done has surprised me. I knew it was coming. In fact, he ain't done yet. You know what I'm saying? He'll do great things at Baylor. He'll be a major head coach one day. That's how much I think of him, and those are the things I saw in him. You know, when those guys, when you work with them and they're young, and you know, you can tell real quickly the ones that are headed for greatness, and there was no doubt he was a shoe-in for that to happen, and nothing surprises me about where Matt Powers is at his career, and he's not only a great coach, he's a great recruiter, he's a great human being, and he understands loyalty. He's a guy that's way ahead of his age. He understands loyalty. He understands commitment. He understands work ethic. He is a special young man, and Baylor just got better.
Well, he is. Thank you, Gary. He's picked up a lot of knowledge from your really good defensive minds. You, Mark Stoops, Dave Aranda, Dan Lanning in the last year. What did you see with him when he is, absorbing from those people before him, the coaches ahead of him, and learning those things from guys who really do know that side of the ball well?
You know, a lot of the good young ones, in my opinion, they pick up on it and they learn it. And they have a knack for it. They have an instinct for it. And that was always Matt Powers with me. You know, he was one of those guys, once he saw it, once he learned it, he knew it. And then everything grew legs with him from there. And, he just has a great football mind. Like I said, people get so caught up in how many years has a guy coached. It don't matter how many years you coach. It matters how you learn, how you process, how you study the game, how you absorb knowledge. And that guy is one of the sharpest, smartest guys I've ever worked with at any age. And he was that way when he was young. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he knew things that guys coaching 20 years couldn't tell you and didn't know. I mean, he's that kind of mind. He's a fantastic football mind. But what he has is incredible work ethic, incredible character, incredible loyalty. Just one of my all-time favorites, and he'll be a Baylor favorite. And like I said, he is really, really special mentally as far as understanding the game of football, knowing the game. I mean, he's one of the great minds, not young minds. He's one of the great minds in the game today. I've spent a lot of time with him, as he's grown in the business, and he'll knock your socks off when you sit and talk S&Os with him. He's very, very special and headed for greatness. And like I said, Dave Aranda knew it when he had him, or he wouldn't have brought him back. He's really, really special and one of the great minds in the business. There's no doubt about it. I don't even say I leave young minds out of it because he's a great football mind. Period. Age has nothing to do with it.
Coach, you've been in a lot of different places, got a lot of experience over the years. Coach Powell just coming off his first year as a co-defensive coordinator. He'll be an outright defensive coordinator back here in Waco. But for you, what was that first taste of being a full-blown coordinator? What was that like, the experience, and how valuable was, you think that last year in Oregon having a little taste of that?
Well, he was with, he's been with some great people, and I think Dan Lanning's one of the great defensive minds. The guy that he was co-coordinator with out there is a great mind. Been around, those guys have been around the block. It gave him a chance to work with them. He'd been with Dan before. I think every stop you make, and Matt Powell has been, again, with some really, really good football minds, every stop he's made. Patrick Toney, Ron Roberts, Mark Stoops, you can just keep naming them, they're out there. And in my opinion, he is ready to go. He's absorbed he's taken all the great things from these guys, and he's going to collectively use the good of all of them, and then he'll be his own man. He's really good at that. He knows who he is. He'll coach to his style. He'll come in there. The one thing about him, he'll be Matt Powell. You don't have to worry about him trying to be somebody he's not. He'll do it his way, Dave's way. But he, I promise you, he is very, very special. And Baylor, again, I can't say it enough, just got better with that hire. He is up and coming rock star.
Coach Pivito, I hope you don't mind that, but he shared this with me. Coach Powledge said when he joined you, and you were at the head coach at Northwestern Louisiana, Northwestern State, the Demons, and he was an assistant. Yes, he was listed as a full-time coach, but really was restricted earnings position. How did he get? Tell me how you took care of him.
Well, you want to know the truth?
Yes, sir.
Well, we had a nice spot. We really couldn't afford to fund it, but we could have a full-time spot, a guy that came in with restrictive earnings that could be a full-time coach. And he was our running back coach and was very, very instrumental in our special teams as well. And I wrote him a $1,000 check once a month out of my own checkbook.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, he told you that to ask me that, I guess. But that's how much I thought of him. That's how much I felt like we needed him. That's how important he was, And, it was funny because he came highly recommended, and I called and talked to him on the phone, and I didn't even interview him. I said, "You got the job." I said, "Come on, we got an opening. I'll figure out how we're going to pay you. It'll be $1,000 a month. We can feed you 21. You need on a training table for 21 meals a week. We'll figure out your housing. We'll get that worked out. Come on, you got the job." And he took it on those terms.
Yeah, he mentioned that to me as a compliment to you, and obviously how much he's admired you from the beginning, and said he's forever grateful for that. And we'll get Matthew on, Coach Powledge, on at some point this week. But I thought that was an incredible story about you, as much as also your respect for him.
Well, I needed him, and we didn't. Sometimes some of those jobs are tough, and we didn't actually have the money to pay it. And I said, "Come on, I need you. I want you. You've exceeded your all the great things everybody said about you in this conversation. Come on, you got the job." And he did. He trusted me. That was the thing that meant a lot to me. He just took it basically on blind trust. And then, like I said, we went to Kentucky and worked together there for 1 year, and he was monumental. We were very, very successful that year in what we did on special teams, and he was very monumental in those efforts and helping me. And he's way above his years. One of the sharpest minds in our game today is Matt Powledge, and he'll prove it at Baylor. I mean, like I said, Baylor just got better, not only with his coaching mind and what he'll bring to the table from an X&O standpoint, but from a loyalty and a loving, caring. I mean, the kids will slit their wrists for Matt Powledge, and he'll be a great staff guy. I just can't say. I mean, you win on all fronts with him. I mean, sometimes you get a guy in that's a good X&O guy. He's not a great recruiter. He's a great X&O guy. He's a great recruiter, but he's not really a great staff guy. Man, he checks all the boxes. I mean, he is an incredible human being, incredible person. That staff will be bonded just with him walking in there. Not that they're already not, but that'll be important to him. The loyalty, the bond, his loyalty to Dave Aranda and everybody on that staff, and to get those kids playing with their hair on fire. He'll do that too. Not that they already don't, because I think Ron Roberts did a great job there as well. Coordinating, but Matt Powledge will come in and they'll play with the hair on fire for him, and a lot of special things will happen.
Coach, how important is it in today's college football? Like you mentioned, kind of being a three-tool player as a coach there, having all the boxes checked, where you can have a great X&O guy, but if you can't recruit, you can't really hide that on staff anymore, because you are recruiting 365 days of the year, not only out in high schools, but your own staff, your own roster.
Well, that's a great point you make right there, because I think you look around, and there's some guys that get hired for certain things, you know, and I guess we all have our weaknesses as human beings. We all have our weaknesses. You know, I mean, I know I do, and I always like my weakness, somebody to play off my weaknesses. I always like somebody around me that whatever my weaknesses are, they can help counter that, help make those better. Matt Powers doesn't have a weakness. He really doesn't. I mean, I saw that at a young age. I mean, he has it. And, when you can hire a guy like that checks every box, I mean, it's hard to do in our game. You know, I don't think I check every box, and I've coached a long time, but he's one of those guys that has it all. He checks the boxes, and he does it with incredible humility. That's one thing you guys will – have y'all got to know him at all when he was there the first time?
Yes, sir. We got a chance to interview him a couple of different times. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, his humility is unbelievable. You know what I'm saying? Do y'all agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's just special. And but, I mean, you're right. It's hard to hide anymore in this business. You used to be able to, but, usually if you have a flaw, it'll show up. But one thing about this guy, Matt Powers, he doesn't have any. He's something else. I mean, he's just a special guy, and I don't even have enough words. I mean, I'm so proud every time. His moves have happened so fast, and he's so graceful how he handles it, and the way he gives credit away to everybody, and he's just done it with such humility. I don't know. It's very touching, and I feel like, it's fun because, when you're with these guys and they're young and, you want to be a great example for them. Let me tell you what I said. When I was a young coach and I looked at other older coaches that didn't work hard, I always said, I'm never going to be that guy because I don't want the young coaches coming up in this great game to say, look at that guy. He don't do nothing. He don't recruit. He's just drawing a paycheck. He's just waiting for retirement. I said a long time ago, when I get to a point where I can't work as hard as these young bucks, I'm going to retire and go fishing. I'm getting out of the business. So my point is, the thing that you will admire about this guy is he is going to crush it with a work ethic, and he's going to crush it with humility. He's going to crush it in recruiting. He's going to crush it leading that defense. And watch those kids. They will play with their hair on fire because he's there. I guarantee you right now, there was a celebration when Dave Aranda announced that Matt Powers was coming back.
Well, we had Jalen Petrie on last week. He echoed that. Some other players did as well, former players and current players. You mentioned how he can get everyone together, and that's one of the slogans you had. Reach him and teach him is one he loved. But he also said you had this one, which is the art of football. It's the maybe ultimate team sport. There is an amazing power in a group of men who are totally dedicated to one another. Isn't that what the key is in coaching football?
Yes, I think it is. You know why? Because you got to throw all of your personal wants out. You got to throw all of your selfishness out. Because you know what? Deep down, we all, I had a guy tell me one time that we all like to hear that we're good. We all like to have a little credit. I mean, all that feels good. We all like to be patted on the back. You know what I'm saying? And with that said, when you pull everybody together, there has to be a very unselfish element to that to make it all work, because you got 120 guys pulled together. And you know what? If you're the defensive coordinator, you can help pull it all together, because it's how you act when the special teams is out there and how you talk to your defensive players about, hey, if you don't play on special, in other words, Well, I know Matt Pallage is going to tell him because this was one of our sayings. Hey, I'll rest you on defense before I rest you on special teams. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So in other words, when those kids know that you got the offensive coordinators back, you got the head coaches back, you got the special teams coordinators back, you got every assistant on defense, you got their back, then there's no chink in the armor because we're only as strong as our weakest link. If you go into those meetings and you're running down the special teams guy or you're making comments about the head coach, hey, in other words, hey, saying something like, well, we're doing it this way, but it really wasn't my call. Well, you've just put a chink in the armor. And and sometimes to be that kind of guy, you got to be unselfish because a lot of times you got to put the heat on you to cover up other spots. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Sometimes you got to take blame maybe that you don't need to take to keep from being unselfish. And sometimes as a human being, that's hard to do. But when you look at that saying that Matt's talking about, that's what it's saying. You got to be totally dedicated to each other. And a lot of times that's through the bad times. In the game of football, it comes down to how good you can be when times are hard. You got to be at your best when it doesn't go good. And that's what Matt Pallage will be great at. He'll be great at making things good when times are bad. And that's hard to do because it takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of unselfishness to be that kind of guy. Not everybody can do it. You look at pro football, college football, you look at some of the body language on sidelines with people, it's hard to do, And one saying we got, we don't like palms up. You know what palms up means? So just make a mistake. Now, as y'all are sitting there, just turn your palms up. You know what I'm saying? Man, that's bad body language. You know what I'm saying? And Matt Pallage will coach body language, I promise you. He'll coach all the little details of what that saying means and being unselfish and being the right kind of team player, being the right teammate. You know what? If you're not coaching it, you're letting it happen. And Matt Pallage will coach all those details. And that's hard to do. There's a lot of great coaches that don't do that. He will do that. He will do all those little things that it takes to make those kids hit on all cylinders.
I have to brag on you a little bit, and Coach, we appreciate your time, and I know you're on your way getting home, but Trinity Valley in 87, I know how great they were at football. You went and helped Lynn Graves get to a national championship game in 89 with Larry Centers and company at SFA. You were on that LSU team, Matt Flynn, who we knew when he played high school football in Tyler, won a national title the year after Jamarcus Russell left. Man, you've got some notches on the belt, don't you? A lot of skins in the wall.
Well, I've been very fortunate, guys. I've been blessed to have been around some really great coaches and some really great people that groomed me when I was young. I've had a blessed career, man. I tell you, when I get calls from ex-players and even opportunities like this where a young man like Matt Pallage puts me in this situation, it puts a tear on my cheek because these kind of opportunities are hard to earn, and it makes you feel good when somebody like you guys reach out and say, hey, a guy asked you to do this or recommended you. I mean, it puts me on cloud nine, and I turned 60 just a few days ago, and you know what? This feeling never gets old, but I take a lot of pride in young men like Matt Pallage thinking that much of me and you guys having me on your show. But I've been very blessed my whole career to be with some really fine people that groomed me and gave me a chance. And you know what? Gave me a lot of second chances too.
Coach Pivotal, it's a pleasure to have you on. We appreciate all the stories, the background, the insight on Matthew Pallage. Good luck with UTEP going forward, and thanks for your time today, and Happy New Year.
Hey, guys, thank y'all. Happy New Year's, and thank you for your time. It was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
That's Bradley Del Pivotal, UTEP defensive coordinator. And my goodness, if you could ever have somebody write a recommendation letter or verbally, you would want that one that he just gave Matthew Pallage, the defensive coordinator at Baylor.
Absolutely. That was great stuff. And he's been, that's a guy who's been, he and Phil Bennett should have a podcast. I'm telling you right now.
Oh, my God.
He and Phil Bennett, like when Coach Pivotal retires, I'm calling it right now. No one else is doing it. 365 Sports, we're producing the Phil Bennett and Bradley Dale Pivotal podcast.
It would be amazing, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of nice words there. Pallage is a guy who, earned a lot of respect in a short amount of time in Waco, and, we'll see what happens. I mean, certainly they need an injection of something, and, it feels like, not only from a familiarity standpoint, but from an energy standpoint, and just a change standpoint, this is, something that people seem to be pretty excited about. So, I think there are questions, obviously, about just the lack of coordinator experience overall, but I think those are somewhat offset by the fact you've got Dave Aranda that's there and plenty experienced, and he's going to have his hand in part of what's going on. But, yeah, I mean, it was a big question about what direction they were going to go. And, once you saw Matthew Pallage from a Baylor perspective, I think you kind of – had a little bit of a sigh of relief, like, okay, we kind of know the deal there, and that's familiar, and that feels good to bring somebody back in the fold who just a year ago was helping us, win on defense in the secondary and also on special teams. And I'm just curious now of, who handles special teams or who handles linebackers, because he's not going to do all three of those.
Right.
He's not going to be DC special teams, inside line. I mean, there's got to be some divvying up of opportunities. So I really eye special teams, though. It's like, that's an area where they were not as good last year, and they should have been really good because of who they had returning. But instead, they took a bit of a step back, and I don't know that it changes their record to 7 or 8 wins, but I definitely think it could have added another win in some cases, if not a couple. And I do think that was part of those little plays here and there, whether it's down in a kick or it's, making a tackle on special teams. Those things add up. Those things add up in a major way, and those things are the difference between being a 6-win team and being an 8-win team sometimes, and I definitely think that came into play for them this year.
The Oklahoma State game is drastically different. Now, again, don't know if they win that game, but I do know that game is not one where they are having to climb up a mountain that they fell down on their own.
And then when they climb the mountain and then they go right back down the mountain because of 50-yard kick return.
They had those 2 bad kick returns. Look, the punting was Isaac Powers' average was down
very hit
this
or miss.
year. And he was fantastic a year ago. So all those things, matter. Like how many of those drives? Because you can't think of it off the top of your head where a 51-yard punt instead of a 44-yard punt made the difference in field position and where they could get down and get a field goal, timing-wise at the end of a half, all those things that go into it. How many times did a bad kickoff, set a team up?
Well, it was early in the year. Well, Rauschenberg always was a guy that could slam it through an end zone. But remember, against Oklahoma State, neither one of them did get there. And we don't get to talk to assistants or whatever, and very rarely players, although there's media sessions on Tuesday. And you got the impression that's what they wanted him to do in that particular situation, to try to knock him down inside the 15-20, which sometimes you do, but that obviously was a philosophy that backfired if, in fact, that's what it was.
I mean, I think of the punt against Texas. They completely flipped the game.
Kind of a shank punt. Yeah.
I mean, there's, and you don't really recall special teams plays off the top of your head all that often, but, I mean, there were a couple of those this year where you're like, yep, that mattered. Yep, that mattered. And the year prior, you just didn't really have to worry about it all that much. It was just super solid, and you knew that they were going to have an advantage, and I don't think they necessarily had that advantage this year.
Yeah, they locked in last year on special
And I think if you're Baylor, you have to have certain advantages or find advantages where you can, and I think that, they've, in some ways, seen those go elsewhere. I think, like Baylor used to win with speed. Who's doing that now? Folks out in Lubbock, folks out in Fort Worth, big dynamic offense. Who's doing that now? Folks out in Lubbock, folks out in Fort Worth, folks elsewhere. Hard, stingy defense. They still kind of have that, but that took a step back. Okay, so where are your advantages coming into play? And I do feel like starting with Matt Rule, because clearly the staff prior to that did not care whatsoever about special teams, that they realized, like, we're not going to stack up toe-to-toe talent-wise with everybody. So where can we get little wins that add up and then help push us over the top? And Rule with special teams really made that a priority and kind of a badge of honor. And I think that the Pals did a good job of continuing that on, and it also helped to have, Terrell Bernard flying down on special teams and Jerry McVay and guys like that. But I think as a whole, they took a massive step backwards, and it was no longer a weapon or an advantage. It was just an area where you just hope they didn't screw it up. And unfortunately, there were a couple of screw-ups that helped lead to a couple of losses inadvertently or directly. And, if you're looking at where can we get better, I think that's certainly an area, along with parts of the defense, along with parts of the offense, that you can certainly stand to improve. And so let's hope that they do that. Now, whether it's Pallage leading that or it's, somebody else on special teams, I do feel good about him and his energy returning to that defense.
The missed field goal against Brigham Young. Remember that one? That was critical. Of course, Brigham Young had their problems with kicking as well. One of the things about Pifito, what he said, we got to break Pat Nunley on Baylor men's basketball, which, man, they got smoked on Saturday, is a defensive coach saying that he will rest players on defense if it means they can play more snaps on special teams. Art Briles and his coaching staff, they took special teams somewhat serious. The problem was they didn't want to punt, but now you see that a lot of places along the way. But they had good punters, and they had Stork kick the big field goal to beat TCU in 2011. But there was that thought. They'll argue that point, but there was that thought.
I will tell you that their recruiting, when it came to kickers, shows otherwise, because they were trying to find a diamond. And a lot of coaches do this. It's not singular to them. But I do think if you want better kickers, start offering scholarships to more guys. But
a lot of teams
don't, because you want that last defensive
back. How many NFL teams draft kickers? Really?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. But, and look, kicking is a hard thing. It's a hard thing to nail down. The Ruggles at Ohio State had a really good year and then missed 2 kicks really badly and won the worst he's ever going to miss in his whole life to win the game. It's psychological as much as it is physical at kicker, more than any position, maybe in sports. Really, it's like you're putting to win the Masters every single time you go out there. And I think that, but I do think that you got to recruit kickers. You got to go and find them, as opposed to.
You got to be committed to putting scholarships that are parts of special teams.
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
and they weren't. That wasn't their strategy.
And sometimes they have to go be able to walk on, and then they earn it. But Hankins was pretty good last year, and then that kind of slid. And then Mayers this year hit and miss, and then of course the power thing with punting. I still never quite understood that. All right, when we come back, Baylor men's basketball. The Big 12 is just nasty. Football's pretty damn good. Basketball is incredible. Baylor went to Ames, got smoked after a pretty nice start. Pat Nunley, former Baylor guard, and also color analyst for Baylor Radio, on what's happened to this team. The expectations sound familiar with football? This is 365 Sports. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco. If you had a New Year's resolution to start getting back to working out, to wanting to really truly become healthy and fit, to losing maybe not just weight but also inches on your waistline. It's now January 2nd. The gym's open all the time. I think they took a couple of days off during the Christmas weekend, but it's there for you. Every single morning they open up at 5 o'clock, not on the weekends at 7. There are 40-plus group exercise classes. Personal trainers, if that's what you want, you can get them. Randall Corley, Alex Botch, and Christy London. And right now they're going through some new renovations to only make the gym even better. And if you're a part of tennis and, of course, the massively growing sport of pickleball, they can help you with that. They have pickleball courts, too. And Britt Coleman, the tennis pro. It's all loaded. The locker rooms have whirlpool and sauna. It is a fantastic place for you to walk through the front door. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lake Shore Drive in Waco.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Sausage wrap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Baylor men's basketball next game home against TCU. They're in the top 20. Baylor now 19th in the country, TCU 17th. Baylor losing in Ames on Saturday. And after a very nice start, Pat Nunley, color analyst, Baylor Radio, former Baylor guard, joins us on 365 Sports with Craig, Paul, and I'm David Smoak. Pat, what is wrong? Is it overreacting to say that Baylor basketball has some problems?
Well, maybe it's an overreaction. I think it's just the ebbs and flows of a difficult schedule, a team that's not as old as it might seem to be. I mean, you got really young guys playing key positions for this team. But I think the biggest area of concern is defense. I mean, this time last year, Baylor was 13th in the nation in adjusted defensive efficiency. Now they're 45th in the country. And that's just not Baylor basketball. I mean, over the last 3 years, really, I think the hallmark of the team has been its ability to get stops when it absolutely has to. And when you play Baylor, it's going to be physical. You're going to have a hard time not only scoring, but getting into your offense and running your stuff. And that really has not been the case for Baylor in the first, 13 games of the year. And I think that's a little alarming. That's the biggest red flag, I think, right now.
Where do you think that stems from? Because Scott Drew, I mean, even going back further than 3 years, it has done a very good job of building people up through the system. And even if you're, a red shirt or a guy who hasn't played that much, you know how things work. But this team hasn't seemed to grab onto that.
Yeah, and I think you really nailed it, Paul. I mean, it's just it's the guys that were playing for us over the last 2-3 years, elite defensively. Davion Mitchell, the best defender in the country, hands down, not even close. Mark Vidal right behind him. Jonathan Chumwa-Chachua was the co-defensive player of the year last year, and he only played through February. So, you've got guys that know how to do it, have a heart for it, understand the importance of it. The Big 12 is a defensive league, and there's some teams that can really score. But if you ask any coach in the league, the keys in any game are rebounding and defense. You got to make it hard for other teams to score on you. And the Bears just have not been able to do that. The reasons for that, I think, are, again, what you just kind of chronicled there, Paul. But I think it's also just understanding that you're just not going to win in this league when you can't get key stops. Even in a game that might end in the 70s, high 70s or 80s, the championship teams get stops when they have to.
Pat, what are your impressions of TJ Otzelberger and the job he's done already at Iowa State?
I think it's terrific. A year ago, they were number 8 in the country when Baylor and Iowa State played the first game of conference. Both teams were 12-0. They were 8th in the country, and Baylor knocked them off. And then they, 2.5 weeks later, they went from number 8 to out of the top 25. By the end of the year, he had them in the Sweet 16. And this year, I don't think they're as talented as they were a year ago, but man, they get after you. I mean, they play so hard that they are always going to have a chance. And then the recruiting class that he's bringing in that we got a glimpse of when we were doing all the pregame stuff for the game on Saturday is really, really impressive. I think he is a perfect fit for Iowa State. He was there as an assistant, went away to UNLV, I guess it was, worked his way back. And right now he's got them going. They're overachieving, and they're going to take their lumps in conference. But I think he is the perfect fit for Iowa State basketball.
Pat, there are some fans, of course, who cover or not cover, but love Baylor basketball. And Scott Drew, they trust, and Scott Drew, we trust. I've seen that before. Do you see where they're going to have to make some changes as far as can they move some people around, or is that just basically just rearranging the furniture?
That's a good question. I think, number one, they need to get Cryer back. He's just snake bit. I mean, he missed 13 of the last 14 games of the season last year, missed a game with a sore back. Now he's in concussion protocol. I don't know that he'll play Wednesday. You just got to get him on the floor. I mean, Baylor has beaten the number 8 team and the number 10 team in the country, UCLA and Gonzaga. And so they're capable. But when they beat UCLA, Flagler and Cryer combined for 50. And against Gonzaga, they found a way to really defend what was the best offensive team in the country at the time, held them to 63 points. So they're quite capable. I think it's stay the course. It's get Cryer back on the floor. I think it's also continue the accelerated development of Josh Ojanwuna, because I think I've said this before. He's the heir apparent to Chachua. But he's 2 inches taller. He's a little bigger. He's hard to believe, but he's maybe a little more athletic. But he's only played 3 years, so I don't think you make changes. I think you get Cryer back on the floor and you accelerate Ojanwuna. And at some point, Jalen Bridges is going to start making some shots. And when that happens, and it's going to happen because he's a career, 42, 43% three-point shooter. And when all that comes together, this team is going to be really, really good. And they're 10-3 right now. So, back to your first question, David, I think it might be a bit of an overreaction. I think you just stay the course.
Keontae George, obviously the story of the year when it comes to newcomers because he is such an electric scorer. We were talking about him before the show, Pat, and one of the things I think maturity-wise, and maybe you can back me up here, is he's going to learn to play defense eventually at some point in his life, and he does well at times. But in a game like yesterday where he misses his first 7 shots, and he's probably in his head about why aren't those 7 shots falling, a guy like Davion Mitchell, a guy like Jared Butler, a guy like Maceo Teague said, okay, well, if I'm going to miss my first 7, the guy that I'm guarding is also going to do that. So it's a net zero. I don't know if Keontae George, and it's probably because he's 18 years old, doesn't know that yet.
I think that's a really good point. The progression from high school to college, I don't care how good you are, it's tough, particularly now that, you moved into the Big 12. This is not AAU ball. I mean, this is just different. This isn't pretty ball. This is, you got to score, and man, can he score, and you have to defend, and he can defend. I mean, I've been pleasantly surprised at how willing he is to share the ball, what a really good teammate he is, and when he really leans into it, he's a good defender. I saw something the other day that I think it's true, that great passers can defend really well because great passers anticipate the game so well. And he is a great passer. Well, to play defense well, you have to anticipate. And he's got that gene, so he can do it, and I think he will. I think maybe sometimes, back to your point, Paul, I think it's a little bit of immaturity. Sometimes maybe lack of offense affects his defense. But he can play it, and he's a great kid. I think he's a really good teammate. So he'll learn that. But that was a bit of a rude awakening on Saturday. It was really sort of, for those guys that haven't experienced it, it was welcome to the 12.
Yeah, and you're right, and it doesn't get any easier with TCU coming to town and what they've done last year. Of course, they made the great run too, and there is no chance to get your head above water if you get below water, is there?
No, well, you got to win at home, and Baylor has 2 games at home this week: Wednesday, TCU, Kansas State, Saturday. But it's not. I mean, it's never easy. And it's not only is it not easy, it is incredibly difficult to win a game. I mean, look at what happened across the league Saturday. Every game is a 1 or 2 possession game. K-State, West Virginia overtime. The only double-digit win was Iowa State over Baylor. And so you got TCU coming in here. They've won 10 in a row, and they are number 17 in the country. This is the first time, by the way, in the series history between these 2 teams, and they played a ton of games, where each team is ranked in the top 20. So it's going to be a war. It really is. And this is finally, I think this is the second consecutive game, first time all season for TCU that they've had the same starting lineup back-to-back games. The ball was out. Miles was out with a hand injury or some sort of injury. And now they've got everybody back together. They won 10 in a row, and they are rolling.
You mentioned Kansas State Saturday. How emotional will that be with Coach Tang?
Yeah, I know it will be for me. It's going to be just weird to see him in a lavender shirt coaching another team. But I'll tell you, I'm elated for him, and he's doing the job that everybody expected that he would do. And everybody, I think Baylor Nation is elated for him. Now, we're going to give him a big high five before the game, and then hopefully we win by 20. But he's energized that program. I remember watching those guys last year, towards the end of the year, watching K-State, and they didn't look like they were having any fun. And they were talented, but the sizzle was gone. Well, Coach Tang, as you would completely expect him to do, has re-energized that program, and he's got them playing really well. They're 1-0 in the league. They won overtime at home, and he's going to be coming in both barrels loaded really on Saturday. But both teams have an important week and both teams have important games before K-State and Baylor match up on Saturday.
Yeah, TCU coming up on Wednesday. And that's a team that, a couple years ago, that was a coach that I think a lot of people thought Jamie Dixon had kind of run his course in Fort Worth and was maybe looking to step out the door, and now they are very much the last 2 years reinvigorated and a tough out for anybody any day.
Yeah, they have reinvigorated, and I think they've had some injuries along the way. most people don't understand how difficult it is to take over a program and, like Coach Dixon has done, and put his stamp on it. They're now playing, like, defensively, they're playing Pittsburgh basketball. I mean, it is physical. They beat you up. They're hard to score on. And that really wasn't the culture of TCU basketball when he got there. So he's got guys, he's got maturity, he's got experience now, and he's been able to get those guys playing the way he's always coached teams to play. And, here he is, however many years into his career, and that team is 12-1, and they are rolling. They've got a lot of momentum, and they're just like we are, really excited for the opportunity on Wednesday. But the stakes are high. Think about that. The stakes are incredibly high Wednesday for both teams. We're 2 games into the Big 12 race.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Hey, Pat, thank you very much. We appreciate your knowledge. Pat Nunley, Baylor radio color analyst for men's basketball, former Baylor guard. Baylor with the home game against TCU, 8 o'clock tip, and then the Kansas State game on Saturday afternoon at 5. Coach Tang returns to where he was a major part of what Baylor did under Coach Drew, and 2 incredibly close friends. That will be an incredibly, incredibly emotional afternoon. And then, as Pat said, say hi, tip it off, and then you hope you win by 20, or if you right now just win the game. All right, when we come back, we're not done. We'll have Tim Brando, Fox Sports, at 5 o'clock today. His thoughts about the championship game, Georgia and TCU. His thoughts about the college football semifinals. I know he'll want to discuss Tulane against USC and more. This is 365 Sports. Dr. Kent Petty at pettycliniclot.com can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and perhaps as you've gotten older, used to be. 1 out of every 3 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. You hear a lot about sex drive. You hear a lot about that. But also it could affect your energy, your focus. It could affect your sleeping habits as well. And Dr. Kent Petty and his staff want to help you with that. 1, let's find out, first of all, you have a problem. Is your testosterone level too low? How do you know? He and his staff will set you up with an appointment to get your lab work. He'll look at the results. How do you contact him? 2 different ways. pettycliniclot.com, and there's a phone number on the website as well. You can email or contact them. Get the blood results. He'll look at the testosterone level, see, in fact, where it is, and if your testosterone level seems to be too low or really low, he can put you in a program to increase your testosterone level so you can become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, used to be at pettycliniclot.com.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
What are you waiting for? Next year's New Year's resolution to lose weight, get fit, start working out? 3, 2, 1, go to Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness. If you really want to get in shape, get rid of weight or inches, you have to make a commitment to work out, and the excuses of not enough time, you're too tired or too busy. There's a special place that will change your life at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco. And they have a commitment to you too. With personal trainers Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alex Bosch. State-of-the-art Cybex equipment, new weights and spin bikes, clean and spacious locker rooms, each with a whirlpool and sauna, and a staff that will know your name when you walk through the front door. Elite tennis facilities and a great tennis pro in Britt Coleman. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness is a place you can call home, a place you can work out on your own or with 40-plus group exercise classes. It's time for you to get in shape, lose inches, get fit at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lake Shore Drive in Waco.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless you know the signs. There they are, Baylor bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at baylor.edu/alumni.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Want more updates during the day? Follow 365 Sports YT on Twitter.
Utah and Penn State are early second quarter. Penn State leading that game in the Rose Bowl 7-0.
Yeah, and I think the timing to guess, we didn't really touch on Tulane beating USC the way that they did.
Yeah.
I mean, we kind of like just mentioned it, but that was pretty freaking incredible, and that was an awesome win for Willie Fritz and for the Green Wave. And you know, I don't know how like it goes from here for them and how they follow that up, because we always get so far ahead of ourselves, right? It's always on to the next thing. But, man, they're going to soak this one up. Huge win for that program and for Willie Fritz, who was on our show right before the season started. Or it was right in the early portion of it, when they were still unbeaten. Beat Kansas State. Was Kansas State's only blemish there for a while, and just an awesome season for that program. So really happy for them. That's a brutal loss for Lincoln Riley and company. And I was reading a lot of the USC reporters in the follow-up to that, and a lot of like, well, it's on the right track, and so not massive disappointment, but there's definitely some shades of the old Oklahoma reactions when they would get into some games with Lincoln Riley at the helm and not perform exactly the way that they were expecting to, especially on defense. And so, Riley made a lot about, the momentum they have and the fact that, I think he said like this was one of the toughest losses he's ever had as a coach was today against Tulane. But I do think that they are on the right track. He is, however, going to have to address the massive jumbo dumbo in the room, which is his defense. And that's something that's been a carryover from Norman, like so many other things. But that's not the carryover that you wanted to have. You wanted Caleb Williams to come on over with him and some other guys, but you're not real thrilled, I think, if you're a USC fan with how the defense performed this season. And your hope has to be that it gets better. But looking at the track record, like, why are you supposed to believe that it's going to get better, this Riley-Grinch combination, right? So, that's something to definitely monitor.
Yeah, they have to address that. But for Tulane, I mean, this is the biggest win in school history for them. I mean, awesome. It's unbelievable. And they won the national championship in the 30s, and then, they were in the SEC back then too. But things are different now at Tulane, but that's huge. It's a huge win for group of 5 teams as you head into the college football playoff.
Absolutely.
Because now you see that, like, look, here's a Heisman Trophy winner. And again, like, not half-assing it in a game. They scored 45 points.
Yeah.
Okay? And a team can come and play with them right there and beat them 46-45. I do think that everything that's happened in the last week, and look, this is only one small sample size, is further dense in the whole argument of, well, there's these teams up here and there's other teams. When you're talking about the day of the game, it's really different, and you cannot hoard people anymore. So when it comes to your depth, when it comes to all those things, some of those guys, even though they're not playing for you, they can go contribute to somebody else. So if you're a 4-star receiver, that might be the only 4-star receiver on your team because you left another school. Well, now you're contributing, and in that moment, you're the guy you expected to be, but you can't get above the 3 5-stars that are in your position.
Schools are losing backup quarterbacks that have done absolutely nothing because other schools are so desperate. So, the days of just hoarding talent is pretty much over. Now, you're going to have an advantage if you're Georgia pretty much against everybody that you play, and no matter when you catch them, they're probably going to have an advantage over most people, but it's just not going to be – they might be a bad example, or in Alabama, for example, but it's not going to be like where you've got, this super loaded roster and the other team's incapable of being able to ever match that or come close to that. I think, as long as your school's willing to go forward and get involved and be active and spend money and, donate and do all those things, there's no excuses not to be able to win football games and improve your program. And I do think that the argument against Tulane, well, if this was the playoff, well, then they'd have to turn around, and would it be as sweet if they went and lost to Ohio State the next round? Yeah, it'd still be sweet as hell. They're still beating USC and winning a Cotton Bowl and then going and having an opportunity. So damn right it would be. And to me, guys, I do think the odds of TCU is actually a bad example. I think TCU go play with pretty much anybody, and we'll see against Georgia. People are already ruling them out, and I just think that's just so silly. I understand part of that, but the argument of can they do it over and over and over again? Well, let's see. What's so bad to
How can you find out if you don't give it a shot? Right?
I would have, if I'd have said Tulane could beat USC at the beginning of the year, probably would have had a bunch of people, no way, nope, no, that could never happen. Well, you actually put them out in the field and look what happens. Not to say that's going to happen every time, that it's always going to be super close games or upsets or what have you. There's going to be some blowouts, but I think we've got enough of the pendulum swinging to the other side of what it has been, that there is a middle ground to be found, and there's a reason to believe that it could be super cool given some of these results. So, I just think this reinforces the idea of opportunity being a blessing moving forward, even if it does lead to a couple more blowouts in bowl season.
And someone who's a proponent of opportunity. And remember, even back during the summer when USC, UCLA, with the next wave after Texas and Oklahoma, was just having hope, having a chance. Tim Brando, Fox Sports, next on 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street in Waco, a hidden gem. Look, I'm sure that the last thing you want to hear if you're someone like our erstwhile producer, Jack, after New Year's Eve is where you can get great craft whiskey and craft beers, but you can get it at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Locally sourced whiskeys, no better place. If you want a whiskey from Texas, Riverbend Liquor and Wine is your spot. If you want craft beer, Riverbend Liquor and Wine is your spot. It's still wintertime, so they have those winter beers, but it won't be long before the springtime beers come in, and they churn the roster all the time. They're always doing a great job there at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Great customer service, a speed drive-through window, great promotions you can find out on Instagram, and available on DoorDash because they are here in the modern times. And you can order from DoorDash and have it bring it right to you. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street behind the bank. Find out more on Instagram.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links. Fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
He is as much a proponent for college football expansion, for everybody having a chance to play, because you never know what happens when you play the game. Fox Sports' Tim Brando joins us on 365 Sports with Craig Paul, and I'm David Smoak. Tim, how about the Green Wave?
Happy New Year, fellas.
You too.
Great to, and I will tell you that you're the only people I'm talking to today, okay? Because this feels like New Year's Day. To me, I've always thought that when it fell on a Sunday, this goes all the way back to when West Virginia played Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl, and I had my family out with me, and the game was actually on January 2nd because it fell on a Sunday. It's almost like you get 2 New Year's Days when you have that happen. So I've always loved it when New Year's Day fell on a Sunday. It's always like you could enjoy it, you could party, and then have a day to recover before the big games are played. I know a lot of fans want the semifinals to be played today rather than, a glorified exhibition like the Rose Bowl. But that'll all change once we do have expansion. The Rose Bowl's coveted 4:00 Eastern time is going to be gone when the playoff is expanded in 24. So we're on our way to good times. But yeah, today, what happened in Dallas, at Jerry World is Exhibit A. I mean, and what TCU did in beating Michigan is, Exhibit A plus for why we've been in a position, I think, for a long time to have 12 or I'm a proponent for maybe going to 16, and I think the chance still exists that could happen by the time we actually get there to implement it. And if not the first year, maybe the second year in 25. But yeah, when you hear people say, and you guys see it, I'm sure, on social media all the time, Bama would be favored by 3 touchdowns. So I don't care how much a team would be favored by. That's not the point. You got to play the game. These are human beings that are involved, and it's not like USC laid down. Caleb Williams played a great game, and I think proved to a lot of people that it definitely mattered to him to play in this game, regardless of having won the Heisman and regardless of the potential of maybe having that injury that he had only aggravated because he wasn't completely healthy. USC's defense, though, was a liability and has been a liability most of the season. And Tulane exploited that with a great runner. You know, Ty Spears was unreal. He was almost like watching another form of Deuce Vaughn, only faster. I mean, he's faster than Deuce Vaughn. And Little 22 was just carving that USC defense apart. And Pratt was also magnificent. I thought their quarterback was tremendous. But again, this is a Tulane team that we knew had beaten Kansas State, and we know that Kansas State is good. Okay? But people around the country that are watching and trying to keep up with college football hear very little about teams out of the American Conference. Hell, they hear very little about Kansas State, and they hear very little about TCU. So, of course, they're not going to hear much about a team out of the Group of Five. But that team, by the way, regardless of where they're ranked, and they weren't in the top 12, but remember in the new format, a guaranteed spot for a Group of Five school will be there, and that spot would have been Tulane. So imagine if that game had been part of a 12-team playoff. How much more exciting would it have been? All right? So I think that, plus the fact that TCU was able to play and not even close to their best offensively, but play physical, you know, with the Big Ten champions that had just boat raced Ohio State and Columbus and beat them when they weren't playing their best offensively. Tells you all you need to know. We need expansion. And the game is going to be enhanced so much once it happens.
Tim, I also think that this bowl season has kind of proved that the roster chasms that people believe exist aren't as big as they think they are. With the transfer portal, much like free agency and professional sports, has evened the playing field a little bit. You can't, hoard people on your roster anymore. And there are people contributing all over the place that are in the transfer portal now. NIL might work as kind of an inverse salary cap, but still, I think the rosters are not all that far off when you're looking at the top 15 teams.
No, absolutely. Now, we had some blowouts, but the LSU win over Purdue was I think, expected, and particularly with Aiden O'Connell not playing quarterback and, Brom gone, and they're in the situation with an interim coach. But, LSU served notice, I think, how good they are and how great they're going to be in the short-term future under Brian Kelly. But pretty much every other game was really competitive and fun to watch. I thought that was a gutsy win over Illinois by Mississippi State today. And, those kids were playing with a heavy heart. There's no question that the notion that the brand names are, have a huge, wide margin in terms of the tier of college football they're in versus everybody else, that's now a myth. It's an absolute myth. And it's perpetuated by a lazy media that chooses to cover the college football that they want to cover, not what should be covered. And I think that the hand will be changed. And I'm not blaming other media members. Look, I'm pointing the finger even at the place where I work. We don't spend nearly enough time on college football during the week at FS1. We don't. It's a nonstop debate show about Tom Brady this and LeBron James that, and nobody really cares about college football until the weekend starts. And the guys that are doing the studio shows, whether it's Game Day or Big Noon, they do a great job, but they are covering what? Primarily the games that are of high profile, and to some extent, because we're in the business of promoting our network, we're going to talk a lot more about the games that are going to be on our air. I think that when you're doing 2 and 3 hour shows, you can cover more than that. It doesn't have to be a pom-pom waving segment. You can actually cover what's going on with other teams that are doing wonderful things. Tulane got very little, if any, coverage at all this year. And that was because they were never a threat to play the role of Cincinnati. They lost the game There were chances that they would lose another game, but they were still a 12-2 football team that had a lot of talent and just recorded the greatest turnaround in FBS history. Think about that. They were 2-10, okay? But last year they played an Oklahoma game at Norman that they could have won. And then a hurricane hit. Hurricane Ida came through, and they lost their home field. They had to move and play out of Birmingham, Alabama. So they were having to vacate New Orleans, and they lost a lot of close games. They were 2-10. We saw them beat, a Kansas State team earlier this year. And even when Kansas State made its run to win the Big 12 title game, Tulane was still an afterthought. No one was talking about what they had done in beating Kansas State earlier in the season. So part of this is falling on us, those of us in the national media that cover college football. It's time to cover more than 5 or 6 teams. And that's definitely going to be forced on us. And I put myself in that group. It's going to be forced on national television to do a better job of covering these teams and the totality of the sport when we're talking about 12 teams getting in or 16 teams getting in than when only 4 teams do. Okay? So that's my thought on it. And hopefully what happened this weekend, which I thought was the greatest weekend in modern day college football history. What happened with those 2 semifinals was unprecedented. And what Tulane did today was unprecedented.
Tim, definitely want to ask you, about that second semifinal, that ring in the new year. But sticking on Tulane and USC real quick, Lincoln Riley's first year in Los Angeles, 11-3, didn't win the Pac-12, didn't win the Cotton Bowl, but still 11 wins. Better, about what you expected, worse than you expected for year one with Riley and the Trojans?
Well, overall, it was better than I expected. I mean, it was. I think he's going to have to make some big-time moves defensively. I could see him firing his defensive coordinator. I could, after what happened to them today. I mean, they got gashed. Their defensive front. Listen, think about what I'm from Louisiana. I know what Tulane's facilities are like, and they have improved. They've invested in their program. But if you look at the size of that school, the enrollment, the amount of revenue that's available to them versus what USC has, I mean, it's not close. They have to be upset with what they were seeing from a defensive standpoint. So I think that he's got to remedy that situation somehow, some way. If USC is going to not only go into the Big Ten and make noise, but to go beyond that, to get into the college football playoff and win, he's got to deal with that. And so, their defensive front just could not get it done. And Tui Palatu, by the way, who's an all-conference performer, was the only guy that was giving the Tulane offensive line any problem whatsoever.
Tim, your thoughts? You mentioned the speed of TCU. You mentioned Ohio State would give Georgia everything they could handle, and they did almost beat them. But let's start with TCU and what we saw as they jumped early. They kept fighting off Michigan, and in the end, they just had too much firepower.
Won a Big 12 game.
They were resilient. They were resilient. That's the one word that you have to say. They weren't on their game offensively. They dropped some passes. Okay, they did. Johnston did make a big play on a 3rd and 12 that was just a beautiful ad-lib job by Duggan when he was getting major pressure. It was a check-down throw that Johnston turned into a touchdown, and a very explosive play that I thought happened at a moment in time when Michigan was ready to maybe assert itself and take control of the momentum in the game. That kind of resiliency is something that those of us that have watched TCU all season have seen. Okay, I saw them challenged by Oklahoma State before they got all banged up. I saw them have to come from 18 down in the second half when Spencer and I were calling that game in mid-October in Fort Worth, and they got to 7-0. That's what they did in those games, and that's what they had to do here. They did not have their best. You look at the numbers on Duggan. It was like 14 for 20, 29 for about 250, 259, something like that. not his best day, not by a long shot. So he had drop passes. There were guys that I thought Jared Wiley was a non-factor. Michigan did take him out of the game, and that tight end is really outstanding. I think he's in line with the Bowers kid from Georgia. So in my estimation, TCU gutted out that game without playing their best. So if they improve offensively, which I know they can, and their defense just continues to play with that edge, D. Winters was incredible. I think they were a little bit pissed about the attitudes of Michigan in the way they were going to attack the 3-3-5, as though that was some sort of gimmicky, small-time finesse conference defense. Because what that defense is designed to do, as you guys know, is plug the guys that are down linemen. They plug gaps and they allow linebackers like Johnson, the Navy transfer, and D. Winters to make plays. And those guys made plays. And the 2 pick sixes were incredible. The corners for TCU are among the best. Clark, certainly. Josh Newton had a huge game, the transfer from ULM, who you think about their safeties can play corner if need be. So I think TCU does have a puncher's chance in this game with Georgia. You're going to hear it all week, how they don't match up, how Georgia's too big, how their sideline-to-sideline speed is too great, and that this is a different animal, and that Georgia won't allow TCU to do what Ohio State did. And I'm here to tell you, those people that are saying that, okay, they haven't seen what we've seen. So I think it's going to be a highly competitive championship game. I really do.
Yeah, I haven't seen the TCU doesn't seem to be bothered by anything that goes wrong in a game. They just kind of move on to the next, no matter what happens. The other game, Ohio State and Georgia. I mean, literally, as the clock struck midnight on the new year, Ohio State loses on a kick that I know that will haunt Noah Ruggles for the rest of his life. Poor guy, but I'm kind of curious on your perspective on Ohio State fans and their kind of recent attitude towards Ryan Day, because he's lost 2 in a row to Michigan, and then he lost a thriller to the defending national champ who's lost 1 game in 2 years. How do you think that they should look at him compared to how they are really looking at him right now?
Well, I think they're out of their minds, okay? I think they're absolutely clueless. I say this all the time. I've been asked many years over, what's the greatest thing about college football? And I'll immediately say the fans. And then somebody will say, well, what's the worst thing about college football? Answer is the fans, okay? And especially at certain places. The blue blood programs where they have this belief that no matter what, they are supposed to win just because we are the Ohio State. And that's just not the way this thing works anymore. The game is so much more competitive, and you might have a great deal of history and tradition and more banners at your stadium than anybody else, but the competition level is far greater, and more schools, whether it's in your conference or outside your conference, are investing as much money as maybe you are. And they don't understand that. They can't conceive of any way that a team like theirs could lose any game ever. You have to win them all. 2 things I think in that game that stand out to me in the aftermath of it. I really thought it was unfortunate, not so much that the targeting was taken off, okay, on the play with Marvin Harrison when he got concussed in the back of the end zone, but the fact that happened and that Harrison could not return to the game. They had already lost their tight end, okay? He was gone, and they already were down 2 receivers. So it basically was Fleming, Aguka, and Harrison. And when Harrison was gone, then Georgia was able to tighten up its secondary because they didn't have to respect somebody beating them deep as much as if those other guys had been available. Harrison was the problem. So losing him, having the targeting penalty taken off, and then losing him because the kid was concussed was problematic. And then just an enormous head coaching call by Kirby Smart that we all just have to tip our cap. When he called the timeout before the fake punt, that was a game saver. If that drive stays alive, then I think Georgia would not have had time to pull off the comeback to get the win.
Yeah.
That was just, I don't know who upstairs alerted him that they were in the formation they were in, but whoever got to them and got to him quickly, deserves a raise. If it was one of his analysts or his special teams coordinator, either way, that was a tremendous call. That was a bench decision that helped save the game.
We have a listener, a viewer, Steve, who wrote me an email that I was going to use later in the show, but I'm going to read it to you to get your reaction. He goes, so you want a 12-team playoff, which he's not against it so much, the expansion. The number of injuries to key players in 2 games was alarming in the semifinals. Now, imagine if that's 5 versus 12, 6 for 11, and now you need to get ready to go play a team that is higher who had the week off. Everyone's sure they want this expansion.
Most of those injuries were the kind of injuries that, players go down because they're cramping. Players go down because they got a Charlie horse. And the coaches are always going to tell them to go down. Go down the moment you feel you can't go. And when you're involved, not just a lot of those are mental as well as physical fatigue circumstances. And it stops play, yes. And it looks like guys are ready to be scraped off the tarmac and taken to the locker room. I don't believe that. I really don't. Today's athletes are in better shape than they've ever been. They get IVs when they go in for halftime. As far as the additional games, unless you're a team that didn't get a bye in a 12-team format, you're only going to be playing 1 extra game. For those teams that maybe would be ranked between 12 and 5, okay, if they were to go forward and win their way into the title game, they would have 2 extra games. But if you're one of the top 4 teams and you get a bye the opening week, you're only playing 1 additional game. So that argument is garbage.
Tim, your thoughts about just college football in general? The NFL is just, we know it's the 800-pound gorilla times whatever else, but you mentioned the fans are the best thing and the worst thing about it, but is this the second best sport in America?
Well, without question, it's the second most popular, and by that, in my opinion, it's the second highest rated on a regular basis, without question. But you wouldn't know that if you watch daytime cable television.
Yeah.
They would have you believe that it's NFL, NBA, NFL, NBA, NFL, NBA, because that's easier to cover. And these debate shows are just about whatever they want to talk about. Okay, they're not covering sports. They're talking about whatever is easiest to discuss. It's the dumbing down of the sports narrative in this country. And one of the reasons why the media is doing it is because, A, you're not having to pay a news gathering operation to compete with SportsCenter, and B, if you're at ESPN, you recognize that SportsCenter is not as popular anymore. People prefer opinion, so they don't want to put opinion in SportsCenter. They would rather have opinion in every other show that's out there. And all you have to do is pay the producer, the director, the 3 or 4 camera people, and that's it. And so they pay these enormous amounts of money to these opinionists, okay, these embraced debaters, and they're talking about the same thing every day. So we're not really covering the number 2 most popular sport in America the way it should be covered as a result. Unless, of course, you're looking at the investment that's being made into the conference networks. I applaud what the Big Ten Network and SEC Network did last week, preparation for the semifinals. I thought it was outstanding. And if you weren't watching them, then you weren't brought up to speed on who was available, what players had been sick, what players that they thought maybe would be game time decisions. in electronic media, college football has become a conference network covered sport, and it's not being covered by the mainstream. And when I say mainstream, I'm talking about daily cable that is, owned and operated by the major powers that cover college athletics, and that's clearly the company I work for in ESPN, and it's not doing the job. Now, on the weekends, when Big Noon goes out, and ESPN, there's a lot of money invested in covering college football the right way once the game starts. But during the week, it's in witness protection.
Yeah,
you gotta watch the Big Ten or the SEC network. And that was one of the sad parts, I thought, for TCU last week. Name the team that was not either in the Big Ten or the SEC that was in the playoff. It was TCU. So you saw and heard much less about them than any of the other three teams play.
Tim, I hope you had a great weekend. Happy New Year to you, and we appreciate you very, very much in all of what you brought to the table throughout college football season. We're not done with you, by the way, because I know you do college basketball. We'll get into that with you a little bit later on.
Yeah, and it's a pleasure coming on the show anytime. Thanks, fellas, and have a great rest of your New Year's. I'm loving this Utah Penn State game right now. I'm grinding it, and I know that you guys are too. Give my best to everyone in the Waco and surrounding area. Hope to see you soon, and guys, pretty soon we'll have Big 12 basketball coming back to Fox. So hope to be able to come in there to do some basketball games too.
You better let us know. That's Tim Brando, Fox Sports, on many things from Tulane, which we didn't know what that was going to be like when Tim was a part of the show earlier today, with what happened there, and an incredible win at the Cotton Bowl, plus, of course, the college football semifinals and championship game moving forward. Just always appreciate his insight. 14 apiece, Penn State guys. Utah and Penn State throwing some bombs at each other too.
Yeah, Penn State could not tackle on Utah's last touchdown run. Just it was a great run. It was a brutal number of missed tackles by the Nittany Lions. Utah's all fired up now, having tied it up and starting to play some defense. Looked like Clifford's a little dinged up after that last hit. So, it's a little over a minute to go, but this is already shaping up to be a pretty electric game, and certainly a second half that I think we can all look forward to. This is not quite the sunset in the San Gabriels. This is not the environment that most people think of with the Rose Bowl, and we've talked about all of that. It's kind of a overcast day in SoCal, but it's shaping up to be a hell of a football game.
Yeah, Jaquinda Jackson, by the way, hey, look, if to all the players out there that think you are one thing,
yes,
and a coach tells you you could be something else, don't immediately dismiss it, because, and look, good for him for waiting his time and being patient and whatever happened with Jaquinda Jackson, but he is one heck of a running back, and he'll be back next year toting the rock for Utah. He's fun to watch, and he has probably changed his financial future significantly by just listening to someone who might know what they're talking about.
Yeah, his 19-yard run was spectacular. He spun away from one tackle, and he was a high school All-American quarterback, and then, of course, ended up at Texas. Now he's at Utah, was going to be a quarterback there. Cam Rising, a former Texas quarterback. Charlie Brewer was in that mix for a very short amount of time, and here he now is, Jackson, as their main guy at running back because of the way the injuries hit Utah.
Before we go to break, we got to shout out S. Michael DeHart for the super chat, $25 super chat earlier in the show. We certainly appreciate it. Love that you participate so well in the show in the chat room. We love all you guys, even the ones that seems we don't like. We still love you. So thank you so much for that, and certainly appreciate any time you're on the show. Super chatter now.
Is that just Oh, it was just a welcome back. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you, Michael. That's very nice of you, or S. Michael, I should say. That's very, very nice of you. And treat for the pizza, first pizza of 2023. We'll definitely apply that, no doubt. Also wanted to make mention of the little note of Baylor with another player in the transfer portal.
Absolutely,
for the Baylor fans out there listening. Lorando Johnson, a.k.a. Snacks, defensive back, corner this past year, entering the transfer portal. Just a real short statement. Didn't seem like that's something he was really looking forward to doing, was announcing his transfer. But, here we are, and for whatever reasons, he's entering the portal as well. So there's just another body off of this past year's team and another personality and player that's on to new ventures. So we'll see how they go about replacing him and reacting to that. But I actually thought he made some plays this year.
I did too.
I thought he had a lot of upside. I do know he was not available for the bowl game for whatever reason, and I don't know the exact specifics as to why he's moving on exactly like I said, but I kind of hate to see that. I was kind of becoming a fan of Lorando Johnson's because of just the way that he played, so that's part of the deal. I get it.
Yeah, secondary now kind of it's not up there with quarterback as far as but I mean they've lost 3 guys, Devin Neal,
after losing
Lorando Johnson and Al Walcott.
Multiple starters the year prior.
Yeah.
NFL starters.
Yeah, and Al Walcott. So it's not up there with the quarterback. I mean, quarterback needs guys to take reps in spring ball, if nothing else, and keep Blake Shelton healthy a little bit. Blake Shapen healthy. But the defensive backfield is getting thin as far as bodies go.
Well,
and look, there could be gains in the transfer portal on that, but you don't never know.
Different than last year. Everything was hunky-dory. Everything was, kissy, wah-wah because 12-2 and everyone – and it changes. And now, of course, whoever leaves, then it opens it up an opportunity. And that's why Matthew Powledge, Dave Aranda, Kevin Curtis, and others will try to figure that out. Lorando Johnson was somewhat outspoken a couple of different times after games as well, but he showed flashes. He had 16 tackles. He caused a fumble, had 5 passes defensed, and you thought that, again, he could run too, which we'll see now what they do there. And there's going to be a lot of different, maybe 25 or 30 different names on the Baylor roster, not just those who saw injury with back-to-back losses, and this is 365 Sports. Ideal MRI, Dr. Rob Maxey and his great staff have an amazing place, an amazing business, helping people find out why they hurt and also saving hundreds, if not sometimes even $1,000 or so when it comes to getting an MRI. If you've been battling some sort of pain, muscle, ligament, and it could be even something else, but your doctor wants and needs some other way for evidence. They ask about an MRI. They say, hey, we need to get an MRI. You then tell them about Ideal MRI. They know. Ideal MRI does a couple of different things. They find out exactly what an MRI is supposed to find out, whether something's torn, shredded, pulled, whatever it might be. There's some sort of aggravation or worse. And number 2, $497 is all it's going to cost every single time, and maybe less. $497 or less every single time. The average MRI can be around $1,100. Remember the stories we've told about people who've driven in from Houston or Austin or San Antonio and elsewhere because the MRI they were told was going to be $1,500 to $2,000. Maybe it's even $900. It's worth the drive. Ideal MRI in the Central Texas marketplace, idealmri.com.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses. When it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
First and goal. He's found 5 different targets. He's going to hand it off. It's Pollard, and he's across for the Dallas touchdown.
It's time for our weekly segment with David Hellman of FoxSports.com.
As I said, leading into the break, coming up with David Hellman, Fox Sports. My goodness, the Eagles... man, maybe fans breathing into a brown paper sack or something because of, well, they've lost a couple of games, including that shootout with Dallas. David Hellman joins us. And David, there's a little bit of a crack in the door, huh?
Yeah. I mean, it's there. It's such a fun situation because, I mean, the stats will tell you that it is barely a crack. You know, the Eagles, all they have to do is beat a Giants team that doesn't seem like it has a whole lot to play for. The Giants are pretty much locked into their playoff spot. And then the Cowboys have to beat a Commanders team that doesn't have a whole lot to play for. So it's theoretically possible. I don't know how likely it is, but you would really be kicking yourself if you didn't try to win this game and then you wound up getting the result you needed. So I wouldn't say I'm optimistic that it's going to work out in the Cowboys' favor, but it is possible, which I think even 2 or 3 weeks ago, we never would have guessed that would be the case.
Well, I guess the other thing would be, you know, a San Francisco team that has already won its division could win, could get home field advantage playing against Arizona, who's on their like 11th quarterback, and they don't have anything to play for either. So it would have to be a miracle for the Cowboys. But David, I mean, you've talked about this team all year long, where you know they have these old dips where things don't look good, but things seem to work out for them. Is that going to play in the playoffs though?
I mean, do you want me to give you the lottery numbers too? I mean, geez, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's baffling. It's the fun thing or the frustrating thing, depending on your perspective, about the Cowboys is like there's a lot of things about them that don't look very sustainable. I mean, in particular, the turnovers. They've had 12 in their last 6 games. They're averaging multiple turnovers per game since Thanksgiving, which everything about football, like if you know anything about football, turnover differentials, everything. Like win the turnover battle. That's drilled into your brain the minute you learn what the sport is. But it's not really biting the Cowboys that much. Like you could argue Jacksonville is their only loss where that was really the issue that affected them. Even the Green Bay game, they got the 2 turnovers out of the way before halftime. You know, I mean, it wasn't turnovers that caused them to lose a 2-possession lead in the second half of that game. So they're finding ways to win even while doing that. I'm fascinated to see if they can keep it up in the playoffs. Obviously, you'd prefer they just clean it up and have it not be an issue. I don't know if they're capable of that. But that's what's going to make this playoff run so fun is, I mean, they've got all the potential in the world. I mean, on paper, I think you have to put them up there among the 3 to 5 teams that you really feel like have what it takes to win a Super Bowl. But they've also got some really concerning tendencies. And, you know, it's time for the rubber to meet the road, and we'll figure it out.
I know this, the Jalen Hurts' value with Philadelphia, but how much is not having Lane Johnson a problem too?
Oh, I think you cut out there for a second. How much is not having what?
Lane Johnson not in the lineup hurting them too.
Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, the Eagles have had some really bad luck. And it's at some of the, like, they lose Jalen Hurts, then they lose Lane Johnson, who, for my money, is the best right tackle in football. They lose Avonte Maddox, who he's not the best at his position, but he is very valuable to their defense because as their nickel, he frees things up for their guys on the outside to do more of their thing. Like, they don't look comfortable playing man defense right now. And then you lose Josh Sweat in this most recent game. He's not your best pass rusher, but he's one of your better pass rushers. They're not just losing guys, they're losing the most important pieces. So, yeah, you mentioned Eagles fans being worried. Like, I'm not worried in the big picture, I don't think, unless the Eagles really manage to give the division away. Because I think if they beat the Giants, and like I said, the Giants don't have a ton to play for, I can't really think of a reason why they need to be playing starters for a whole 60 minutes. But if they lose to the Giants somehow, and now not only do you have to go on the road in the playoffs, but you don't get the week off. Like, this is a team that needs a week off. That's what the Eagles need. I don't think that they're magically a bad team. I think they caught some bad injury luck at the worst possible time to catch it. And so I think they need a week off to get things in order, to kind of catch their breath, get guys back on the practice field. And if they don't beat the Giants, they're not going to get it. So that's what I'm looking at for them. Because yeah, some of these injuries, it's always bad to lose a guy, but they're losing multiple guys at very important spots.
David, what did you make of Ron Rivera not knowing that they were eliminated from the playoffs?
We actually just talked about it on Speak today. I think it's one of the more baffling, inexcusable things that I've seen from an NFL head coach, honestly. And I want to be clear. Obviously, it ultimately didn't matter. Like, the Packers crushed the Vikings. He could have been as prepared as possible for it, and it wouldn't have mattered. But the problem is, if he didn't know, then did it affect the way that he coached the game? Like, did he leave Carson Wentz in the whole way through because he didn't think it mattered? You know, Carson Wentz threw 2 first-half picks. The Browns didn't start to pull away from that game until late in the third. Like, I think the Browns went up 17-7 with like 3 minutes to play in the third, something like that. Like, the game didn't start to get away from them until they had already played a lot of football. If Ron Rivera had known that losing the game might end their season, you think he might have put Taylor Heineke back in the game? You think Carson Wentz might have been on a shorter leash? I kind of do. I mean, they played well with Taylor Heineke for the most part. And so we don't know this, obviously. Ron Rivera is the only person that does. But if he had known that his season might have ended yesterday, I think Ron Rivera probably coaches that game a little differently. And he didn't. And it's because of a very important detail that he didn't know. That's crazy to me. I think there are some people that think we're blowing it out of proportion. But when you think about the fact that not knowing that might have impacted decisions that he made on the sideline during a must-have game, it looks really, really bad, in my opinion.
Well, I'm a lifelong Washington fan during the name changes and all that, and it is it's inexcusable. And I like Ron Rivera, great story, great coach, hell of a player, of course. I'm not saying great coach, but a good coach. But the thing about Heineke, he was going to turn it over, throw it on the ground, whatever, the wrong. But he at least gave them a spark where they seemed like they had a chance to score 20 to 30 points in a game. I don't know if they did, but that response there was stunning to me. Shouldn't somebody at least have told him that if he himself should not have known it himself?
I said this on our show today. I mean, I covered the Cowboys intimately for 10 years. Like, I spent a lot of time around Jason Garrett and Mike McCarthy, and I've just covered the NFL. Like, these things that NFL coaches know would blow your mind in terms of the detail. Like, whether it's the weather conditions in a city for a game that's 2 weeks away, advanced scouting reports, keeping tabs on like the length of the cleats of the players. You know, is there dew on the grass outside? Should we move practice indoors because the field prep isn't just right? What's going on with this guy? Like, did this guy get in trouble? You know, do we have to do something about his like behavioral stuff? Like, the list of things that an NFL head coach keeps in mind every day of every week is mind blowing. And that is not an insignificant detail. That's a very important detail. And so the idea that would escape his attention, or would escape the attention of the people whose job it is to put it in front of him, because there's about 5 of them too, by the way. You know, I mean, an NFL coaching staff, an NFL head coach has a personal assistant. You've got quality control coaches. You've got advanced scouts. I mean, these people talk to people whose job it is to know this stuff all day, every day. And so the idea that you could just get to Sunday after the game is over without knowing that, like I said, it blows my mind. It's astounding.
David, your LSU Tigers rolled to a 62-7 win today in the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl, and Tulane beat USC in the Cotton Bowl. Is it? I mean, you're from Louisiana. I need to know this. If we were there, would we get like free like cup of gumbo on a day like today anywhere we ate? Because this is a pretty big day.
You know what's funny? I mean, LSU is what I don't think I've ever been so unexcited by a great LSU performance. And I mean, that's not a knock. It's just Purdue's had a bunch of people. I think LSU was a better team than Purdue anyway, so it's whatever. I kind of expected that to happen. But Tulane getting that win, here's the thing, like Tulane, this is the second time Tulane has mattered since like the 50s. They went undefeated in the late 90s. Mm-hmm. The city got pretty excited. But I think this is a bigger deal than that, because I think the sport's a lot more visible. You know, you see group of 5 teams go to the playoff like Cincinnati last year. I don't think Tulane has mattered this much in the lifetime of most people from New Orleans. So I wish I was there just to see how excited the city is. You know, like Tulane, they used to be an afterthought, wasn't even a fair way to describe it. Like, they used to play in the Superdome in front of like 1,800 people. Like, you couldn't give tickets to their games away. And now they've got an on-campus stadium. People actually like going to their games, and they just beat the Heisman winner in a Cotton Bowl. Like, it almost doesn't compute. So I wish I was at home too, just to see how excited the city was. I'm actually, I was fortunate enough to get my dad went to Tulane. I was fortunate enough to get him tickets to the game as a Christmas present. And I gave them to him, and I was like, oh, you know, USC is going to beat y'all by 30, but you'll get to go, and like, you'll have a good time. It'll be fun. And, I was just texting with him a little while ago. I was like, man, I'm so happy it worked out the way it did. And you've got this incredible memory. I mean, if it's not the best thing to ever happen to Tulane athletics, it's got to be up there. So yeah, it's pretty exciting.
They both are now on teams. Brady is in the playoffs with Tampa Bay, and it's been a tough year, but they found a way. And now here comes Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, and they control their own destiny. Even though those two teams seem very flawed, does that bring a little heartburn to anybody else who might be in the NFC playoffs?
I mean, it should bring heartburn to Dallas Cowboys fans, because it's very like those are the two most likely outcomes, right? So let's say, you know, like Paul said, it's a statistical long shot that the Cowboys would get the 1 seed and the bye. But if they win and the Eagles lose, they'll get the 2 seed, and Green Bay can only be the 7 seed. So if Green Bay gets in, you're talking about Cowboys Packers in the first round. Packers already beat the Cowboys once this year. We know all about Aaron Rodgers' history with them. Can't say you like the sound of that. And then if the Cowboys don't win the division, they're locked into the 5 seed, and the Buccaneers are locked into the 4 seed. So it's like a 90% shot the Cowboys are going to Tampa to play the Bucs for the third time in the last 2 seasons. They're 0-2. They got their butts kicked in the season opener, and it's obviously Tom Brady. I mean, he's the GOAT. So I'm not saying the Cowboys can't win those games. I would expect them to be favored in both of those games, but you can't tell me it doesn't give you a little bit of pause and a little bit of heartburn. If I was a Cowboys fan, I would feel pretty anxious about either one of those matchups.
Well, you just bringing up the fact that they could play Aaron Rodgers gave me, like, I don't know if it's like a stroke,
sweating.
like a little bit of a stroke, like one of the mini ones, but like something kind of like that.
Yeah.
I've thought about it long and hard. Like, you know, you look over the playoff scenarios and you're like, okay, this is what they need to happen. This could happen. And the thought crossed my mind of like, is it worth the risk of winning the division? Because there's a very good chance that you play Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, Detroit could still beat the Packers. The Seahawks and the Lions are still alive. So we don't know for sure that it's going to be the Packers, but that's not, I don't know if that's a risk worth taking, in all honesty. But I guess we'll see how it plays out on Sunday.
Congrats to LSU for the route. Happy New Year, David. We appreciate you on Mondays during the season. And now, 1 week left in the regular season, and then really it all gets to be great. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, guys.
David Hellman, Fox Sports, with us on 365 Sports. When we come back, it's been a while. Did you do one Friday? A top 5? What was it on?
It was top 5 quarterbacks Baylor should target.
All right. And 365 Sports, Garrett Ross, Jacob Wilson, Jack McKenzie, Emery Winter, Levi Caraway with what they do. And we'll be back with Paul's top 5. This is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace, your hometown grocery store, full service butcher shop and bakery. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, poultry, and they can also custom cut your favorite steak, whether you want a bone-in ribeye, a T-bone, maybe a bacon-wrapped filet. They can do it specifically cut the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey for lunch meat, and, of course, a variety of cheese. Several options of sausage link. Fresh chicken breast, whole chickens. They have beef and chicken fajitas marinated, and on top of that, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef. Fresh vegetables as well. And on top of that, of course, great product and customer service, marinades, seasoning, sauces. The Bauer family, the history and tradition of Waco Custom Meats to now Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless you know the signs. There they are, Baylor Bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at Baylor.edu/alumni.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Top 5 undecided players in the portal. And one of these would have been Grayson McCall, but he took his name out today. Austin Awney would not have been on this list, but he also took his name out today. So some guys are seeing what's out there and deciding that, the grass is not always greener on the other side.
And Awney, again, is going to the NFL.
Yeah.
The grass is greener.
The grass, yeah. But
maybe.
Yeah. Number 5, Marshawn Lloyd, running back from South Carolina, is a very, very solid player. Kind of surprised to see this one just based on how South Carolina finished, but they also lost their tight end, Jaheim Bell, and a couple other players. So part of this, I do think, is under Shane Beamer, just some bending of the roster and guys who weren't recruited by him who are going to other places. But if you need a running back, Marshawn Lloyd is probably the one you want to get right now. And really solid player, got some good yardage on the wall. Again, he's at South Carolina, so his name's going to fall into the background a little bit, and that's kind of the case for most of the guys on this list here. But in my opinion, look, other people who are probably far more experts than I am on this will have lists where he might be this high, but I'm giving you my top 5 right now. But I would want, if I need a running back, Marshawn Lloyd's the guy I'm going after right now.
Yeah, he's a bowling ball, right? 5'9", 200 plus. Had a good little run there with South Carolina. I mean, based on what I saw following this, and he's been in the portal now for a while, but I mean, I feel like they thought he had some sort of NIL deal lined up, because why else would he be jumping in there? And yet he's still out there. So that's very curious. And I've seen, how. I don't mean to disparage in any way, but you know how fans are, just as far as accusations and things like that go. And so, I saw a lot of that NIL and supposedly feeling like he might have had deals already locked up and clearly does not. So, I don't know how all that played into it, but I thought he was a good player. And so, if you're in need of a running back, I'm not sure where he is exactly in the, the various site rankings and how that goes. I know a lot of the top 20 is pretty much all decided, if not even, top 50 at this point. But he is one of the better players remaining, to your point. And, very curious that he hadn't found a spot yet.
At number 4, Virginia quarterback Brennan Armstrong. A lot of people have him rated over the number 1 guy on this list, and to me, I'm just not going to do that based on how much that guy's won, and you'll see who that is in a second. But Brennan Armstrong's still out there for a team that needs a quarterback. I don't know what kind of offense he's looking for or what kind of situation he's looking for, but the big spots are drying up now, so it's going out to, also, by the way, Sam Hartman is not on this list because, again, I believe he's going to Notre Dame. I don't want to put him on the list. Like, he could go to Notre Dame any minute now. I think that's kind of a done deal. But
that, you don't mind. Notre Dame was very interested in Tanner Mordecai.
They've seemingly been interested in every quarterback basically available, but in particular Mordecai and a couple of others.
And Tyler Buckner just had his best game of the season. I mean, he didn't play much, but he was fantastic in their bowl game. So they're trying to improve their situation in a hurry at Notre Dame. But Brennan Armstrong, he was the guy initially I thought would go to Notre Dame. I kind of felt that, but that's, I don't think, in the wind right now. So I'm wondering where he goes, because he won a little bit at Virginia. He put up some good numbers. Obviously, they've had a coaching change, and this year, notwithstanding, it's just been a terrible year for the entire university. But I do think this is a guy who can help a team. I just don't know at this point who that's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I have no clue. I mean, I think Baylor has a quarterback need, but maybe not as clearly as some others who clearly no, we want a starting quarterback. Theirs is a bit more unique because they have to, I guess, be careful with Shapen. And, even though they've been so careful, he's their only quarterback on scholarship at this point. But regardless, I mean, I don't know really what the market looks like for Brennan Armstrong. And, it's interesting because when the portal initially opened and he started looking at these quarterbacks and ranking these quarterbacks, he was one of those guys that was right there at the very top. Now, granted, some names entered after he did, and so that obviously changed the deck chairs a little bit. But Spencer Sanders is still out there as well.
We'll get to him in a minute.
Okay, that's something I saw on him too. But I'm kind of surprised that Brennan Armstrong's still out there. I wasn't nearly as high on him as some others, but still surprising, no doubt.
Yeah. Number 3, and this is one that's under the radar a little bit, Gunnar Britton. He's an offensive lineman from Western Kentucky. He's from Conway, Arkansas. And so, a lot of thought is that he's going to jump into the SEC, but a really good tackle who can help an offensive line needy team, but has been out there in the portal for a little bit and hasn't gotten to that spot yet. So this is a guy you probably haven't heard of unless you're a Western Kentucky fan or a fan of that league. But Gunnar Britton, a really good player from that conference that's in the portal.
Surprised that Tech hadn't gone and scooped him up like they did with a couple of other Western Kentucky offensive linemen last year. But, to their credit, they lost Zach Kitley, and they just kept kind of zooming on along. And they're definitely producing some real threats all across offense, all across the offense. But, don't know much about Gunnar Britton other than just very experienced, very well respected as a player, and his contributions and all of that. But you would think a big old offensive lineman would have people lined up at the door given the need for it. But unsure about exactly why he's still out there, other than maybe hopefully for him, he's got so many offers, he's just having to sort through all of them. That would be the nice problem to have, right? Even though I think everybody's kind of wanting to find a landing spot at this point. And by the way, I guess it was Pete Thamel saw a tweet that apparently he was talking about Brennan Armstrong to NC State as a real possibility because of the Robert and I connection there. So that's something to monitor that Thamel, I guess, put out there a while ago.
Staying in the same conference.
That would make a lot of sense. Number 2, Rondell Bothroyd from Wake Forest. And this is going to be a rough week for Wake Forest. They're going to lose their quarterback and maybe – I mean, obviously their greatest quarterback that's ever played there. And they're going to lose their best defender and a captain right now. And it's mostly because of the same reason, is that these guys are at the end of their careers. Their NFL careers are a little suspect, but they're really good college players that can help your team, but they need to capitalize on NIL. Dave Clawson's been really cool about it. He's been, look, our NIL isn't what some of these other places are going to be, and these guys have given all they want to us, and we can't begrudge them that. He was especially that way about Sam Hartman, but this is a guy who can help your team on defense, a defensive end, really good against the run, and on a defense that wasn't all that great, but he's one of their better defenders. So going to be a rough week for Wake Forest, but they can grab him.
136 tackles, 30.5 tackles for losses, and 16.5 sacks in his career. That's still really good. I mean, obviously that wasn't 1 year, but forced 4 fumbles. I mean, this guy can play.
Yeah,
can absolutely
That's
play.
Why he's looking for greener pastures, literally greener. And I guess just trying to take advantage of that NIL. And I know they're losing a lot on the D line, so maybe he's taking that to account as well. I don't know, but those are some great digits. In a lot of different categories. So player that I'm sure a lot of people are enticed by.
And number 1, Spencer Sanders, to me, I put him the number one player in the portal. I've seen, maybe it's a bias from being covering the league so much in the Big 12, but this guy's has led his team to a conference title game. Obviously, came right down to as close as you can get, to winning a conference title game and not. But he's been really good, and he's had his ups and downs, and obviously injuries play a part of that. But in the right system with a fresh approach, and we talked about it earlier with Mike Gundy, something weird's going on in Stillwater right now, and that's why all these players might be transferring. I don't know, that's just speculation to me, but Spencer Sanders with the right coach, and I mean, he could go from being a guy who, we'll take a flyer on him because he's a superb athlete in the NFL, to somebody that you actually say, no, we kind of want Spencer Sanders here to see what he can do in the NFL draft, but I don't know. Again, I don't know where that's going to be right now.
I would love to know why there aren't more teams on him. I mean, specifically, I would love to hear the reason why he's not being more heavily pursued. I don't for one second pretend to, say that he's a perfect quarterback by any means. He's definitely got some flaws in his game, like turning the ball over too much. But, I mean, I've been looking at these bowl games. I'm not seeing, like, stellar quarterback play across the country. I don't know why he's not being viewed as, like, an upgrade for a number of teams out there. I don't get it, man. Is he hurt? Like, I mean, what's the deal? I really don't understand how he's still out there, and somebody's not just dying to scoop him up that's got, an average at best or maybe slightly above average quarterback. He's above average to me. I'd take him in Waco right now. I tell you that right now. I don't know about you guys, but I'd have him come in there and create some competition. But, maybe he returns to Oklahoma State when all is said and done. Maybe that's just, the journey that he's on, and him and Gundy run it back one more time. That's certainly still possible with him in the portal. But, I'm very curious to know what it is about his game exactly that people aren't in love with.
Yeah, I wish I had time to text Robert Allen to get whatever response he gives to me, who covers Oklahoma State, I'll share it. I'll try to get that for tomorrow because, there's something weird there, or just something that the timing, whatever, maybe a team that's still playing, although there are not many left. Utah and Penn State, 14 apiece, third quarter at the Rose Bowl. Mississippi State, good God. Mississippi State winning today against Illinois. Tulane coming back to beat Southern Cal in the Cotton Bowl. And then also today there was one of the game, LSU just mauled Purdue 63-7.
All right, Thamelon, he's got all the answers, but no, I was just Googling it here. I guess Ole Miss is maybe in play for Spencer Sanders.
Mm-hmm. That's surprised with Jackson Dart.
They fell on their faces at the end of the year. That was a great win by Tech. We got to at some point kind of go back over the Big 12 schools, and this kind of, especially Tech, that was a big win for them. So Ole Miss perhaps is interested there. I have to, it doesn't make sense that nobody's interested, so it has to be that he's just feeling it out, and perhaps, weigh in coming back to Stillwater for one more run, although I feel like they've kind of tapped that out, but who knows, with a little bit of a change of, the scenery around there, if that helps things. But, I'm surprised he's still out there.
All right, retired stockbroker gave us $365. That's a penny a day for the year, only up from here, as I'm not locked in. We appreciate that, retired stockbroker. Red Wine said that Nebraska has 3 coaches following Spencer Sanders on Twitter, although they seem to be very much ready for Sims and or Casey Thompson. S. Michael DeHart gave us a super chat earlier. Thank you very much. We're glad to be back. We really are. A lot of you very patient as we all kind of had a chance to kind of get away, and we had the shows in the morning, replays in the afternoon, Thursday and Friday, but we're glad we're back and more to come, in fact, throughout the next few days. Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports, will be one of our guests tomorrow on 365 Sports. For Garrett Ross, Garrett, do you have the one more tweet? This is from Chris Chavino. Lincoln Riley asked about the confidence in defensive coordinator Alex Grinch. He said they just played the game 15 minutes ago, and he's not going to get into the big picture stuff at the moment. We will take a deep dive in it. Different response from Gundy when he was asked the same question after the Oklahoma State bowl game.
It's one of 3 questions that he answered, by the way.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the Sark thing. Like, I know there's intricacies and stuff, but both guys came off looking awful to me, especially Gundy. He's got to know. He does know better, and at this point, I wonder where his head's at and what that means long term in Stillwater, even though he's already been there for a very long time at this point. One final note and kind of time this back around. We just mentioned Texas Tech a second ago. Saw Zach Barnett over at Football Scoop saying Matt Rule looking like he's going to be bringing not only Rob Dvorak, who is also here with Rule at Baylor, over to the staff, but Garrett McGuire, also looking like he's going to join the Nebraska staff as he moves from the Panthers, where Rule brought him in fresh off his career at Baylor to start his coaching career, which many, including his father and Rule and others, believe will be very bright. But yeah, Garrett McGuire and Rob Dvorak look like they'll be joining the Nebraska staff.
All right, and of course they hired Bob Wager, who was at Arlington Martin and also a few other schools, were part of the Texas High School Coaches Association Board of Directors, as one of the coaches on his staff for tight ends, I think, and for a co-assistant coach of special teams. Garrett, thank you. Levi, Emery, Jacob, Jack, everybody, thank you. Paul, great to have you back. Craig Smoak is back, and we're back. And we appreciate you, again, showing patience as we had a chance to decompress. We're back, and here we go. Tomorrow at 3 o'clock, 365 Sports. Good night.